There's a lot of stuff about the anime industry that's predatory, for sure. Some people are actually theorizing that AI is going to bring a revolution of analog back again. What is the ideal world?
All right, how's it going? Dillon, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
The long-awaited, we're going to roast all animation studios episode of Drinks.
That's my professional job. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
In case people, obviously, we're going to have everything pop up, but in case people don't know what you do you want to introduce you and yourself and your channel a little bit?
Yeah, I am an animator, notably like a 3D animator, and I run a studio that does mostly like 3D anime fight scenes. For context, like I used to work at Rooster Teeth on Ruby Volume 3.
I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah.
That's crazy. All right. Hell yeah.
Yeah, everyone's learning. So I did that for a while and was really specialized in fight scenes at the time. And even before that, I was like, I loved making action sequences and stuff. So I built a studio around it. We run a YouTube channel now, Dillongoo. We make a bunch of videos like Genshin asks us to make videos, like Star Rail and like Arc Knights, like stuff like that. And it's fun to just kind of like lean into like the anime aesthetic, but like make it kind of crazy, you know, with like how much movement you're seeing, which is a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm an animator.
Yeah, it's super cool. I very randomly, I remember when you joined Geeks, and there were like, I think, like 2 or 3 videos very randomly that I just remember, like, because I went to your channel, as happens when like someone new comes to Japan. I'm like, ooh, who's this person? And like you see like the red line, right, if you've watched something. And there are like a bunch that I've like seen. So I was like, oh, that's crazy. Because to me, I think like rewatching like some of the clips, it was like, oh, this looks like someone just clipped footage from the game, basically, right? So.
Thank you. I'm honored.
So it's super cool. I've actually been very excited for this episode specifically because despite being extremely passionate about anime and photography, and you know, like I've been learning a bunch recently about composition and stuff, so I wanted to get into that. But per se, despite how passionate I am about the medium and also gaming and everything, I know very little actually about animation and specifically 3D animation. And so I'm like super ready like to get like a little bit of a crash course and get some stuff. Can you like maybe, so in my head when I think animation, obviously, so you have like the very traditional 2D animation, right? Like just you draw everything and then literally like every frame, right? You do everything. How and obviously like that has changed now, you know, where obviously you have people who animate the keyframe, or you have the keyframe illustrate. Is it an illustrator? Is it a keyframe animator?
Keyframe animator.
Okay. Yeah. And then people who fill it in between, basically.
Yes.
I just assume that with 3D animation, it's like a completely different process.
It is, but more similarities than you think. So like for anyone who doesn't know the difference between 2D and 3D, like the biggest difference is that like for 3D there is a lot more preparation time, but a lot of other things are then made a little bit faster afterwards. So it's like for 2D, you can do anything you want if you can draw it. You can just do whatever. And you can just draw every single frame, make it super cool. And it might take a long time, but like eventually you'll get done. And it kind of scales linearly, right? For 3D, you can't do anything until you make a model and a rig and make it renderable, do all the shaders, the materials. You know, you gotta do all this stuff before you can even move a character. And then once you move the character, you can do the keyframe animation, which a lot of people do, like those, like every 4 or 5 frames or whatever they do.
Is there like a classic? Do you have to imagine this in like After Effects, where you just set a starting point here? Like, so if people have never edited a video before, use like After Effects or Premiere. So keyframe is basically you set a point for whatever. It can be like rotation or scale or whatever, right? So I would start, I guess, with the model's arm being here. Yeah. And then I move the cursor forward and I wrote like on the rotation to, what would this be? Y-axis. So I would go like this at the end. Yeah. And then you get this movement. But then you need to make it move smoothly. What I'm like so confused by is like I get it in After, like if I do After Effects, right? Like, and I'm like, oh, I want to have this text come in and do something funny, right? Like there's like some presets and I can obviously, you know, make it like, instead of it just doing whoosh, I can make it like easy ease and whatnot, like make it smoother. Yep. Animating a character though, seems like like there would be like so many little things from like the hair. Like, are there like actual physics in the?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how does it work?
Imagine animating text, except every joint.
Okay, so it actually is.
Yeah.
Everything is like
Every single
individually.
joint. And like, so like, if you want to rotate the arm, you do that, but also you have to like move this part and then like this part and like that part. It's very much like puppetry.
Okay.
So 3D is more like a puppet animation in terms of like a real like marionette kind of thing.
That's crazy. So if I wanted to, let's say like something very dumb, like you have a model of me for like me and Genshin, right?
Yeah.
And then like you want to make me pick up a cup that's like next to me.
Yeah.
How what's the process behind that and making that look like natural?
Well, picking objects up is actually relatively weird.
Okay.
Just because you have to do parenting, right? So you have to actually like have like an object like stick to the hand afterwards.
Oh, okay.
And then you can move it.
So so just me standing up from a chair or something.
I mean, you would just have to get the key poses. So like if you get the key poses,
yeah,
in the same way that you do 2D, like you'll draw like, okay, you're sitting, and then maybe like you'll draw a couple frames later and you're kind of like halfway out and like kind of your weight shifts and you start to actually stand up and eventually you actually draw the pose where you're like up and you're good.
Interesting.
For 3D, you do the same thing, but you have to move every joint into the exact pose that you want per frame. So, but once you do that, so this is the tricky part about 2D versus 3D. For 2D, like you mentioned, you have in between frames that other people will draw. Usually in like a studio, it'll be maybe like the people who are entry level animators who are like filling in while like the veteran animators are doing key animation. But for 3D, you don't split that duty. You kind of have the main animator. They'll sort of let the computer fill in those in between frames, and they'll have to, like you said, figure out the interpolation speeds between each one of those afterwards. So they do the key animation, and then they'll do sort of like, okay, I'm gonna allow the interpolation to start now. Usually you stop the interpolation.
And then
so
you do like a little bit of fine adjusting.
A bit of fine adjustment. Sometimes you add more keyframes. Sometimes you just adjust the curves, and then eventually you have a complete animation at 24 FPS. Or 60 FPS if it's like a game, and you stand up.
Is it technically true for 3D animation too? Then that like what's like a standard keyframe or like keyframe rate that would you do like every 4, every 8, or?
That depends entirely on the motion, to be honest.
Okay.
But yeah, every 4 is a pretty good amount.
Okay.
I'd say that's probably about the same for 2D. 2D might be a little bit longer, like maybe 8 frames.
Right.
Depending on.
As a rule, would it mean that, okay, I wanted to have this look? I mean, it's the classic, which has been getting better, I think, in general. That's the classic. You watch the game trailer, and it looks like amazing, like a little movie, and then you play the game, and it's like... But is it like, if I just... does that mean, in that case, that people have just spent more frames? Like, oh, we're going to actually do like every 2 frames by ourselves. Like, does that make it look better, I guess?
That's a really, really good question, actually. So this is actually really relevant to especially what we do, which is 2D, 3D animation. So it's this kind of blend between 2D and 3D where you're using 3D, but you kind of want it to look 2D and kind of have those sensibilities. And one of the biggest things that people have learned, especially with Spider-Verse, which was like one of the first.
I want to get into that too.
Oh my God. Dude, we could talk about that all day. So Spider-Verse kind of set the stage for this is what real stylized 3D animation could look like. And one of the things they did really well was something called mixed frames, which usually for like Pixar or whatever, most 3D animations, everything's 24 FPS. In the same method that I just described, where you have interpolation, it interpolates at the 24 FPS rate or whatever the max frame rate is all the time for every single frame. For mixed frames...
Oh, can you quickly explain what interpolation is, I guess?
Yes, interpolation is basically just like, it's the in-betweens, right, of like between keyframes, what speed in which you want this pose to move into the next pose. And like what kind of like...
Because I guess it looks very if you start here and end here and you just like this, it's very unnatural, right?
Yes. So it's so like, for example, there's like a Bezier. You're familiar with Bezier.
Yeah.
So like Bezier is like a very smooth ease out and ease in curve, and so like that kind of looks like this. You're sort of here, and it sort of goes like, right, and it kind of like it starts slow, speeds up, and then slows down. And then there's like linear, for example, which is like the opposite, which is like completely no smoothing at all, and you just get this.
Yeah, and it starts immediately at that speed,
yeah, it starts
right?
immediately at a constant velocity and it
Yeah.
stops immediately. So like those are the kinds of interpolations you can do in
Okay.
3D really easily, and you can have all sorts of like mixtures of like what kind you want to do. Now, you can also turn off interpolation. So when you turn off interpolation, you have complete and total control and responsibility over the poses.
Right.
So it's like doing key animation you do like every 4, but then when you really want to do like mixed frames, it starts to look more like 2D because you're like doing every single frame by hand, which is what 2D artists do. So when you define every pose by hand, you might do every 2 frames instead, which is what you're talking about. You add more manual poses, and that does give you a much more artistic result.
Okay.
Because generally speaking, like the efficiency of 2D animation comes from the dynamic readability of poses. Like usually when you're watching like an anime, dude, I swear to God, like Kakashi versus Obito, or like any other like crazy ass fight animation that you watch, sometimes you look at it and it's like, this is something crazy is happening, but like only like 4 frames like were really drawn.
Yeah.
Like 4 poses, and then a bunch of like effects, and you're like, that was the craziest flip he's ever done. But it's 4 poses, like. But
I mean, I guess 2D is very good at like faking stuff going. It's like the classic still frame, but there's like the background is just looping or something, right?
Yes, exactly. That's that was popularized by Yutaka Nakamura.
Oh, really?
Fantastic
Okay.
animator. But yes, the efficiency of poses gives you a lot of implied movement, but really, really stylized and really, really nice. And so like your brain just kind of like eats it up, and you're like, oh, wow, that was a lot of information.
Okay.
And like you get that snappiness and that efficiency when you do it in 3D as well. So you'll see some stuff like some really, really gorgeous stylized animation in game trailers. Like a good example of this, I recommend people watching this, is the Honkai Impact 3rd cinematics. They are gorgeous. They were done by a studio called Wonderium, I believe, in Tokyo, and they do 3D models, but they do like a bunch of special stuff with the 2D stuff that makes it look like super 2D, but a lot of it has to do with this manual posing.
I think one thing I have seen. Well, first of all, I'm kind of curious because I assume with 3D animation, you kind of, I like, do people use Blender for this, or is there like some specialized software probably, or?
Blender is the only software you need.
Okay. So what I've seen people do is like take, for example, a 2D background. Like let's say you see like a sky and mountains in the back, and you just place that. Like if I guess if you have the fake 3D like puppet room, I don't know what what's the name for that?
Call it a scene or an environment or something. Yeah.
So this environment, you just put it far, like it's big enough so you can move the camera and you put it in the back, but then you have like your 3D stuff here, and then put like the 2D, basically, wherever you want.
That's you always want to cheat as much as possible when you're doing animation. Everything is so expensive. Like you don't want to do everything for real. So like painting backgrounds. That's called matte painting, by the way. They do it in live action as well, where they like paint a really far background to just like composite in there.
It's funnily enough what they used to do in like movie, like not anymore, obviously, in like the era of green screens, but like Star Wars and stuff. Like I think the biggest one I can think of is inside the Death Star when they filmed that. That's a giant drawing that they did. Like that's a matte painting in the back, and like because it looked like you get like a little bit of motion, like. Okay, that's a whole other theme, like camera stuff I want to get into too with animation. But because with like if you have a real camera and you have like a little bit of like a bokeh in the back, like a bit of blur, right? Like depth blur. And then if like no one knows if this is going to be a painting, it just looks really like that's what they used to do in the movie. So that's kind of cool that has now just been like reintroduced in like 3D animation.
Very true. Yeah, 3D animation actually uses like a lot of live action techniques, I'm sure, because like so much of it is a very similar workflow. Like you have real objects in 3D. It's nice, like lighting even as well. Like in 3D, like depending on if you're doing stylized or realistic, but like for realistic stuff like Pixar, they use the same sort of lighting philosophies as live action. So like they'll put real physical lights in the scene where they want the lighting to be. Yeah.
I'm not sure how much you use Photoshop. It's really funny to me. Like I don't really use this feature, but because like I just like learning new stuff and trying stuff sometimes. And I do remember that I watched this tutorial where it was like, oh, we're gonna make this really realistic looking 3D text. And so you actually in Photoshop, you can create a 3D environment where you then like place light sources.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
And they create like that. I tried it once. It was like a lot of fun, but I was also like, this is kind of nuts. I'm like crazy. In over my head here.
It is kind of crazy. They're like, hey, you know these like, this 2D canvas you've been looking at?
Yeah.
What if it like wasn't 2D, and like they just put like, whoa, there's like this imaginary world. And I'm like, yeah, or you could use Blender.
Which
for context, I'm a huge Blender nerd. Like I've been using Blender for like 13 years now.
has Blender been around? I mean, that makes sense, I guess. Yeah.
Blender is actually as old as I am. So
really?
it started out like Blender 1.0, like the alpha or whatever, was like in '93.
Crazy.
Yeah, and it's been growing over and over and over.
Do you know who created Blender?
Yeah, Tom Rosendahl. He's a friend of
Was
mine.
it for Hollywood or just
It's open source. So
Crazy.
like when he made it, I think originally he did make it for like the purposes of like putting it into the industry of some kind, and
Right.
it didn't really catch on at the time. And there was a bunch of, I'm sure there was a bunch of politics around exactly how they were going to market it. And so he was like, let's just make it free, guys. I'm gonna make it free. I'm gonna make it open source, and he committed himself to that really, really hard, and that's been the case, you know. And he's been running actually the foundation for Blender since then.
How's he making a living then?
Donations.
Donations. Yeah.
So many donations.
Crazy.
It's actually kind of crazy how popular Blender's become. That like they have big sponsors from like Unreal Engine, Unity, Facebook.
I mean, with Unreal Engine, that's like a whole nother box I wanted to get into. Like, there's some crazy gameplay you sometimes see of like projects that are made in Blender.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks crazy.
Yep. We can talk about it.
Yeah, I want to get into it. But like sticking with the, go for it.
I was gonna wrap up like with the thing that you mentioned about the mixed frames thing.
Yeah.
Like, if you do have that, there is one particular issue, which is that people will start to feel a little nauseous sometimes. It's really weird with
Is that the
3D.
classic 60 frames, a little like it's getting a little bit too smooth?
The other way around. It's like if you do mixed frames, you actually have too few frames. And this is a really interesting phenomenon, which I don't have to nerd out too much about here, but like Spider-Verse was a really cool social experiment in that sense, because like some people actually didn't like it. They didn't like the frame rate.
I heard that. I heard that story. Interesting.
Yeah, but
was that real? That people actually got a little bit?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There were some people who like did not like the
choppiness.
The like experience of watching something like at a lower frame rate. And what I find most interesting about that is like it was still a relatively new thing that people were trying to figure out, and like people are still working on like how to make it feel as smooth as possible, because it's weird, right? You have 2D always at low frame rates. Why does 3D feel weird? And I have like this, it's like a phenomenon that I like to call like the PS1 like effect, where it's like essentially you're looking at,
right,
like we've sort of been trained to see 3D as like this perfect medium of like it'll always have this much frame rate, and if it ever stutters, your computer's fucking up, your console's not good enough, like there's not enough RAM or something. Like always there's this association with like this is actually worse than it should be, and our expectations have been set higher. And
good old GoldenEye.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, classic time. But yeah, you'll get a couple people complaining about it. So it's a really interesting thing when you talk about like, oh, is it always better if you do more frames? And it's like not necessarily.
Not always.
Because there's a lot of people who will sort of like ascribe to that idea of like, yeah, we have to make it.
I mean, I guess you get the opposite effect too when, I mean, the classic gaming thing, I need to like game in like 240 frames per second. But
exactly.
like it gets like a little bit weird if it get like, for me personally, I don't like it if it gets
too high,
too smooth. Yeah.
What did you think of The Hobbit at 48 FPS?
Yeah, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I did not like it.
Yeah,
but I'm a very big 24 like cinematic,
yeah,
like
fair.
very begrudgingly in my own YouTube videos. I recently went up to 30 because there was a bit too much motion blur, and I think it was like just not. I think for like casual viewing, I like begrudgingly was like, it's probably not like 30 is probably like a sweet spot, but I was like very hardcore, like nope, 24 frames per second cinematic, like have that every like the nice motion blur.
Yeah, I mean I'm a big fan of that too personally, but yeah, I can see the benefits. I mean, it's interesting, like for the 48 FPS, I think what people I said at the time was very much like it doesn't look real anymore. Like it looks weirdly too fake.
Yeah, it kind of gave everything this like a little bit too smooth, kind of like it's very awkward because you'd think it would make things more realistic, but then it kind of maybe it just doesn't work well with maybe if it's real footage, maybe it would look better. I don't know. That would be interesting, but I feel like because it was like so much CG and then already the lighting and everything looked so fake in The Hobbit, like there was like I think like layers that kind of work together there.
Yeah,
I was like very sad because the only story that I personally am more in love with than One Piece is Lord of the Rings, and so the fact that they messed that up, I was like very sad about. But I mean, there was a whole thing with like the production studio and like them obviously like changing directors and then they trying to like rush things out and whatnot.
It was a lot.
That was so much. I'm like very sad. They're doing a new one, right? The Aragorn Gollum one, Hunt for Gollum.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Wait, who's
filming a
directing
new
that one?
Peter Jackson. Yeah.
Oh,
So
sick. All
I'm
right.
curious. High expectations
I'm
because
glad
I think
he's still
he didn't
employed.
want to do The Hobbit. I think they
He
like
didn't. It was originally
last-
Guillermo.
exactly.
Yeah.
It was like a last minute thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very curious.
Hmm.
So when it comes to animating, you already said that like having objects interact.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm very curious about that. If like because obviously I assume you can have. Can you have? You said you can have physics to a certain degree. Like
You
if
can.
I just say okay, like put gravity to I don't know, is that a thing?
Yeah,
Put
that's
gravity.
Yeah, yeah. You can turn on gravity. You can turn on.
Can you keyframe gravity?
You can.
That's crazy.
You can do whatever you want.
That's so crazy.
It's great.
That's
Yeah.
it. So you could do like, oh, I'm gonna animate like Pain doing like the pull and oh, I'm just gonna move the center of the effect to him and then like turn it up or something. And would that like just attract stuff?
If you set it up.
Okay.
So there's always some amount of like investment time you have to put in for 3D, where it's like you want it to work exactly the way you want it to. So like for characters especially, you're gonna have to like add the things that are gonna do what you want before they do what you want. So like for characters, you don't get physics by default. You have to like set up a system that is compatible with physics. So like that's where you get ragdoll. So like ragdoll physics in games doesn't happen by default. But like once you set it up that way, you can just ragdoll the character and it's a lot of fun. But yeah, but you gotta define like the arm and the colliders and all these things. So but yes, absolutely. Once you do that, you can totally just be like gravity.
That's cool.
If you want to.
That's so fun.
It might look a little funny, but
Is it harder than to do like me picking up a glass, or is it harder to say animate like an emotion? Because especially I'm curious for like, you know, like let's say I think the video I watched, I think this was one of your more recent ones where they were like fighting for the dumpling.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, this is obviously reliant also on the voice acting, and also you kind of want to bring these characters alive, which has always been a bit this like uncanny valley, like how do you actually portray a realistic facial emotion? Is this something that you like, do you animate? Like if I want to raise my eyebrow in 3D, is that something you animate, or is that something, okay, no, someone did like a motion graphics, or like someone did it once and now there's a template that I can just like how does that look like?
Good question. What you're asking about is motion capture.
Yeah.
So like motion capture is definitely a method you can use in 3D. Like people do it all the time. We don't use motion capture personally, so we animate everything by hand.
So every like facial expression,
every facial expression, everything.
Do you know how many like individual points there are in the face that like is every muscle animatable? Like
in a lot of rigs, yes. In our rigs we have a couple of shortcuts.
Okay.
So like we'll do some things where like we don't have to animate, we don't have to add so many bones in the cheek. But we use certain tools that like allow us to do that more efficiently, and we have like an anime style rig, so we don't have to do every single muscle.
I guess anime would be a bit more forgiving.
It's a little bit more simplistic. You can kind of like focus on the things that really matter, like the eyelids, the eyebrows.
Yeah.
Like we don't actually animate the nose at all, pretty much, because it's just there. But like because we don't have nostrils, right? we don't have nostrils.
That's good. That's
but
good.
like in like a realistic rig, like yeah, like every muscle will be a bone.
Okay, I have like so many. I'm sorry to the audience too. I'm like jumping through so many questions, but every time you explain me something, I have like new questions popping up.
It's good.
I remember when like, and this is also something I want to get into with you later.
Yeah.
Like obviously like early stages in anime specifically, and like the classic like you have like and this still happens to this day where you have 2D, very clearly awkward 3D model back to 2D. But there are anime obviously now like high productions where you can't even tell that like 3D has been used because they composite it so well together.
Yeah.
One thing I'm very curious about then with faces is because I remember, I'm trying to think what that anime was. There are like a few really like, clearly they didn't have the budget or the time. And so the heads moving looked very awkward. Like obviously even in 2D drawing an anime face from like, you know, like straight on 10 degrees, 20 degrees up to like 90 degrees or like from the back. How does that work with the anime models in a 3? Because especially if you have a scene where like it goes really fast and maybe not only like obviously what you have to keep in mind is that in these scenes, not only is the character like doing something, but the camera is also moving. So how do you make that not look, again, with the nose, for example, if like the camera moves like this,
Yeah.
how does it not suddenly look really bad?
Oh man, you're asking probably one of the toughest things to solve in 3D.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, for anime in particular, like if you want to get like a 3D anime model to look really good from all angles and not look like a figurine, we'll say, right? Like sometimes you get this kind of like dead eye look with like 3D
Yeah, it's
models.
like,
Yeah, and they're just like it's like very like I don't know, like Toy Story, and like that is a big problem in the industry because it's relatively difficult to solve for.
mhm.
So like only I would say there's a handful of studios that are really nailing it now, but like for the longest time it was like the last frontier of like how to figure this out. And the solution is like a combination of a lot of things. The reason why it looks bad though is a really interesting thing because the reality is we don't realize this because you know we're so used to watching 2D anime, but like when people draw anime faces, they don't draw them correctly. They draw them how we kind of want them to look.
Right.
So when you have an anime character like rotating their head, it's not geometrically accurate. This is a very important thing with like 2D animation. You can kind of like obfuscate the shape of the face as long as it looks good from that angle in that frame. A very common example of this, if there's any example that you can find to showcase on screen, there's really good really good sequences and even just like, you know, famous animations where the character will just like be looking at the camera and then like they'll look up, but their chin will stay there. Their chin will still be like down here. And they'll never draw the lower jaw like underneath the jaw. This is like a really scary angle for animators because like the geometry required to get the jaw to feel exactly right, especially like when the jaw is facing the camera. There's like no line that really separates the head and the neck. Right. So it's a really weird angle. And so they just avoid it by just like, oh, we're just gonna keep the chin like down here and keep it pointing downwards, even though they're looking up. And this is like I'm the number one example that comes to mind is like I think it's Asuka from Evangelion. There's like a bunch of those examples because especially back in the 90s. Yeah. And so like that example and a bunch of other examples are just ways animators have cheated the face for years. And in 3D, the default is that it's perfect. So when you do look up, it'll have a weird line and it won't look exactly right. Or like if you look this way, it'll cover up half the eye, but like in 2D they would just like show the whole eye. You know, like those kinds of things. So what ends up happening is like in 3D, if you want to replicate a 2D look, you have to break your rig. You have to break the face. On purpose. And so what's become more popular lately is camera angle dependent shapes. So then like when it starts to look at something from a specific angle, you actually morph the face specifically to look more appealing as if a 2D artist had drawn it. It's a lot of work.
Crazy. That's
a lot of work.
Crazy. Yeah,
but
I can
to
imagine.
answer your question, that's basically how they do it.
Is there, and I guess this is like partly that question, partly like going into like a new territory.
Yeah.
Because I've heard that obviously, and that makes sense, that if you kind of try to blend, especially if you maybe have a project that's both 2D but implements 3D elements, that you paint over the 3D. Like you kind of, instead of having to think, how is this crazy, I don't know, like... Actually, that's the thing. Like, I often don't know if something has been modeled in 3D, but let's say, okay, something that I could imagine someone did in 3D, but maybe not, was like maybe like the crazy, like stuff in like One Punch Man or something, like the Centipede or something. Yep. Something that's like very like, I don't even know what this would look like. So let's do a 3D model, but have someone kind of clean it up. So is that something that's used quite a lot? Because I know it exists, I think, but...
It depends on what you mean by clean it up, because there's two ways you can do it. One, you can obviously do textures that are fully painted, and you can get shading on there that's kind of like permanently there that mimics what a 2D artist would do. Right. And I think they did that for Elder Centipede. And if you want to do it after the fact and you do dynamic shading after it's already moving and stuff, that's another way to do it. A lot more work. Okay. But both ways are technically viable solutions.
But you would never go in and... I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure there... Or maybe... Was it the Spider-Verse also? I feel like I read that like someone animated the scene just to like... Oh, I don't have to... Like just to figure out what the movements would realistically be. So I have it in a 3D space. I animate the scene. But then I actually go over each keyframe, like over each frame and like repaint it. to make it like I'm gonna get the 2D animation look, but I didn't have to think about how this crazy weird like interact like object or body would move in space, basically, just to get a more like accurate visualization kind of. I'm trying to remember there's like one very famous case, and I can't remember what it was where they.
I want to know what it is.
Okay, I gotta look it up.
But I'm sure it's been done before.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, anyways, before we move on, because I have like a bazillion questions for you, I'm going to pour you some good sake.
Please. Thank you.
If you want more, always ask.
Sounds good to me.
The name of the podcast.
Cheers.
Cheers to you. Thanks for coming on. Kanpai. Do you drink sake?
Socially.
Like every day after I wake up.
I'm never alone.
No other way to get through it. I mean, animation sounds like it's quite punishing work, honestly.
Oh yeah. No, I keep saying, like, if you want to be an animator, you do have to be a little bit crazy.
Do you get like carpet tunnel syndrome and stuff?
It's a big concern.
Yeah.
A lot of my like workspace has been specifically to avoid any kind of wrist injury. So like for the longest time, my team makes fun of me for this. I have a vertical mouse, for example. So I don't use a horizontal mouse. I use a vertical one.
So it's like this?
It looks like this. It's like a shark. It's like a shark fin, and it's sort of like, you click like this, and it allows you to have more of like this sort of karate chop natural sort of wrist movement, rather than like this, which just takes a little bit of effort, right, for your wrist to like rotate horizontally.
Did it take some time to get used to it?
Yeah, a little bit, but not that much time. You can kind of get used to it, and then like I started playing like FPS games with it, and they're like, "You're crazy." I'm like, "Look, it's better for my wrist. What do you want to do?" And that started helping a lot. So like, I did have wrist problems at first, and I don't really have much anymore. But there were times where even with the vertical mouse, I was just clicking too much. Like, we're talking like 12 hours a day, just like clicking, right? And like, there was a point where I was like, "Okay, I need another solution." So I got there's a device I didn't know existed. It's like a foot pedal.
So I got one of these recently for guitar playing.
Oh, yeah.
Because usually I think what people actually use that for is turning pages.
Oh, you're so right, actually. That makes sense.
I think it's like, and I only realized because there were like 4 or 5 settings on it, and I'm like, what are these? I was like, flip page, go back. I was like, these are the 2 options. Until I realized, people might be using this as like a mouse, like kind of
interesting
supplement. Yeah. But I think that's where it originally comes from.
It makes sense,
I think.
Or just anytime that someone needs to like type super fast and they don't want to lift their hand off, potentially. But I know for me, I basically used it as the clickers. So like,
so it's the classic like here, and then you have the 2 pedals, right? Is that the one you use too?
There's one in the middle, and there's one pedal on each side.
Oh, okay, like I think mine is maybe like more simplified than maybe music. Yeah.
So
that's crazy. Yeah,
I have a foot pedal that like literally just emulates left click, middle click, right click, and that's it. And I just put it there, and then like I will still use my mouse, but I won't click because I gotta save my fingers. So I start using my foot to click while I'm moving my hand, and it's like this is what I mean when you kind of have to be a little crazy.
Do you use it for gaming too?
No, God.
I feel like this really, because I'm like into gaming, but I'm not like insanely into it. So I was kind of like curious, like there might be people out there.
There might be
who are just like like spamming stuff with their feet while they're doing it.
Hey,
because you can program these things. You can be like, like right click, and it's like, I don't know, like shortcut for reload and this and that.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's so nuts.
It's probably not tournament
legal.
But yeah.
Crazy. Okay, so you do use one of these.
I do it for anytime where I feel like already a little bit overworked. So like I don't do it all the time, but like anytime I need to work and I also need to take a break, I don't take a break. I just
do you do right click, right foot, left click?
Yeah, I'll use the same foot usually, and I just like move it.
Oh, okay, you go back forth.
Yeah,
that's so crazy. Does it become more intuitive? Because I mean, I didn't try. I was just like, it blew my mind that people use it that way.
Yeah, it's actually it doesn't take that much getting used to. Like your mind just kind of switches over, and it's like, oh, it's just the same thing.
Crazy. That's so wild. Yeah.
I will work a little slower, to be fair, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's kind of chill, I guess.
It's chill.
And I guess you kind of that's so cool.
Yeah.
So. Okay. So there's a few like directions I think we can take this conversation into. So I'm going to just like throw a few things out there which I want to talk to you about.
All right.
And then you can pick your favorite one to get into first. Okay. So I did want to talk a little bit more about like The Hobbit and like movie
Yes.
3D animation. I did obviously want to get a little bit into One Piece animation, which I know you've been like also excited to talk about.
True.
Because there was a lot of change there. In general, also like anime, like the evolution of 3D animation and anime overall.
Yeah.
And I have been, as I told you, been like getting into compositing recently, which was like a whole new world for me, with surprisingly few resources out there.
Yes.
Like so, and I mean, is there like any of these four that you like to start with?
Oh man. There's so
And there's
much to
more.
talk
I'm gonna
about
like
for each
whenever you
one.
say anything, I have like 8 thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, gosh. Well, I mean, I think we should talk about One Piece. You
Okay,
know, we
let's
might as well
yes,
go into that.
let's
So,
do it.
Yeah, let's do that.
Do you? So first of all, I gotta say, I don't know. Is 3D animation used in One Piece? I don't know.
Not that I know of. Actually.
Okay.
I think for the most part, not at all. I haven't seen a single clip from One Piece where there's any 3D animation. But I could be wrong because I haven't seen the full thing.
Do you have any hot takes on the One Piece animation?
It's not really a hot take, but like obviously there's a lot of limited animation in One Piece, and that has to do with, to be fair, a really really good style choice for that kind of limited animation. And they do a lot of shortcuts and stuff. There's some
The
really
infamous static IC
yeah,
reaction shots.
Tons of those, but also like it's so funny like when they have like, because this is actually something that they probably doesn't lend well to the style as much, but like they have characters with really detailed lips, but they don't do detailed lip sync because anime doesn't have detailed lip sync.
Yeah.
There's a really funny clip I saw of like I don't know who the character is, but he says like Ben Backman or something.
Yeah.
And it's like he's saying it, but his lips never close. So like, how does he say the B sound? Right? It's like
He's
those
like,
kinds of things.
That's just how powerful he is. Though.
Yeah, exactly.
That's his level of power. You don't need to close your mouth.
Yeah. He's actually speaking telepathically. The mouth movement is like a courtesy, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's
So
like low effort.
yeah. So there's a lot of things like that are fun to watch. Like One Piece has a really like unique animation style because of that. But the fight scenes are incredible. There's so many good ones.
And we're talking about, are you talking about like more recently after they changed?
Yeah, more recently for sure.
Obviously, so just from my perspective, I, as the One Piece guy, whenever people ask me, like, because usually I tend to be more leaning towards like, I'd rather watch a good anime over reading a good manga.
Oh, okay.
So I feel like if a show has a good anime version, I'd always go to that first. And
Fair.
for One Piece, I always tell people, read the manga. Now, that being said, the animation and the story has gone through a lot of iterations, and especially recently, they've been like really cranking it up. But for the longest, like there was a good stretch where kind of a combination of they were getting too close to the source material, so they needed to slow things down. It was a weekly project, and just people are going to watch it, so why bother putting effort into it? Like kind of like these 3 or 4 factors. For a while I felt like the anime was almost unwatchable. Like that was, again, I'm not sure how deeply you are into One Piece, but I would say like until like we got into like the Wano, which is like the Japanese arc, right?
Yeah.
Up until then, like that was the first time they actually did something very new and like thicker line art and like had a bit more fun with it. And then after that arc ended, thanks to, in part, I think like the thing I love the most about Kimetsu no Yaiba, the Demon Slayer, is just how it has taken large chunks of the anime industry who've been kind of like doing the same thing for like 20 years and like grabbed them by the hair and dragged them into like into like the future, and are like, yo, we are gonna do what like Makoto Shinkai is like my favorite anime director. Like amazing. I love his stuff, his realism. I feel like when you watch his, different story again, but if you watch his movies, like everything looks like a wallpaper. My wall, literally on my Mac, like my wallpaper is just like Makoto Shinkai scenes looping. That's like all it. So basically, I think Demon Slayer and then like a few other like studios like MAPPA, obviously, they had like projects where they took the rest of the industry, dragged them, and were like, we're gonna do this now for like not on a movie budget. We're gonna do this for a TV show. And I think One Piece hit that same level at some point, like 1 or 2 years ago, where they were like, okay, just having like static, boring shots isn't gonna do it anymore. We're gonna need to have some fun with things and actually, you know, like experiment and be creative. And to their credit, they've been like, I think, doing a really good job with that.
Yeah. No, it's fair. It's definitely the newer ones. And a big credit to, I would say, what we call the web gen animators. So like a lot of these newer fight scenes are also being done by a lot of younger animators. And it's in part because like,
and a lot of animators just in general, right?
I mean, that's true. Yeah. But yeah, like a lot of the key animation is being done by like these incredibly talented like young people who just got started on the internet. Like some people started from Newgrounds and now they're working on One Piece, right? Like that's a crazy thing, but it's a pipeline, you know, basically at this point.
Yeah.
A lot of people get scouted on Twitter now, and they're not Japanese. They're from like all over the world, and they're working on, you know, making these incredible things because
for no money.
I mean, yes, not a lot of money in that, unfortunately.
Just passion.
yeah, pretty much. And it's funny because like there's definitely a little bit of that disruption in the industry because of how bold a lot of these younger animators are, because they didn't grow up in the industry of efficiency, right?
Right.
They grew up in just pure passion. They just grew up making whatever the hell they want,
which is great. But it kind of, I mean, so I want to stick obviously with your thoughts on the One Piece animation, but it's like, just wanted to throw it quickly out there, even though I know it's like opening a whole other cans of worms. The fact that you look for young, passionate animators, underpay them, but they of course still want to and have to put their all into it because like that's their big chance to prove themselves, and maybe they're really passionate about, you know, I love like animator who loves One Piece. They're like, I'm not getting paid and respected, but I still want this to look really good and I still want to give it my all. And I feel like that's like a whole weird system that's been built up over the last couple of years.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff about the anime industry that's predatory, for sure. And I can't speak too much on that myself because I've never actually worked in the anime industry. You know, I've been independent for a long time. So like I can't be a voice for that necessarily, but I will say that like in an ideal scenario, one of the biggest things that plagues the anime industry right now really is the fact that there isn't huge budgets. And like it makes so much money.
Which is weird. Yeah. Why are there no budgets?
Yeah.
I mean, one of the biggest things, again, paying the animators is like number one. But also on top of that, it's like one of the biggest gripes I've had with One Piece for a long time. And I just don't think, like, people are going to say, oh, the sound effects, right? They still use the Dragon Ball sound effects from
I see.
Like, shoot me, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, yes, there is a nostalgia factor there, but also you can't tell me that, like, you're shitting money. Like, get a sound designer, please, who like creates some original stuff. Have you watched Fire Force?
I've seen clips.
So the best, really good show. I really like the story and everything. Animation is okay. They have like some cool fights for sure, choreographies.
Yeah.
The thing that's most crazy about Fire Force is that I think, unlike almost anything that's not on a movie level, they have insane sound design. And I think it adds so much. And I think that's what the gaming industry very much, like talking about your Genshins and Honkais and whatnot, like obviously for a like immersive gaming experience, sound design is so important.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what really, like, they've got figured out, which I feel like a lot of the anime industry still is not really paying attention to. Same for YouTube, by the way. I feel like
that's true.
Audio is strongly undervalued, I think. For
sure. It's interesting because like I've always we just did our own sound. Like we've always made our own sound.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, we don't always record new things, but we do sometimes. And like every time it's like we just want to make it sound what it's supposed to sound like rather than pulling from libraries as much as possible. So I never really thought about that, but like you're absolutely right that like there is a lot of anime that is relatively high profile that does underutilize sound. I mean, One Punch Man Season 2 is like a good example of that as well. They also have, I remember that specifically had a lot of repetitive sound effects.
Yeah.
And it does beg the question of like, well, how much budget are they giving the sound people, right? Because it all boils
not
down.
A lot.
It all boils down to that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think recently there was like news that the leading sound, like the sound chief on the One Piece anime, like stepped down, and I was like, oh. And also, like, a second reaction was like, what did you actually like? Very, very rudely. I'm sure he worked hard, right?
Yes.
But I was also like, it was like, it's not exactly like I remember for the crazy sound design.
Yeah. I mean, poor guy might have been the only guy doing like
everything.
I
don't know. Yeah. Sorry. So no shade. Like, I'm sure he worked really hard. Yeah.
No, exactly. But that's the thing. It's like, and I've heard that like sometimes it is really just one dude doing like multiple shows at the same time too. Crazy. Like it's, man, like I don't know. But yeah.
Sorry. Yes, I didn't want to get too far away from. So yes,
Right.
the fighting animation.
Oh yeah. The fighting animation is really good. I mean, everything you said about it, like when you have like the thicker lines and like the more, like what they're doing really interestingly with like some of the newer stuff, like I've seen with, you know, obviously with like Gear 5 Luffy, and like obviously Zoro's doing some really cool stuff too with how fast he's moving and all that stuff. They start to blur the line literally with geometry. So like they just kind of like blobify things, and they kind of like make things feel super smeary, even if you're not Luffy, you know, and like really pushing that boundary of like the boundary of boundaries, right? Like pushing everything so that it just kind of moves like liquid, gives a really unique feel to the One Piece.
Quite stylized.
It's
recently,
very
I would
stylized.
say,
Yeah. That is I've noticed pushed more in the One Piece anime fights than most other anime. Like you don't see it in like Demon Slayer. You see it like a lot of stylized effects.
Yeah.
But not as much like amorphousness.
Going weird, like goofy, like extreme with it. Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's very unique, and I do like that.
Yeah. I think JJK does it a little bit now too, but like, yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm kind of curious how you feel about this, because I'm just gonna infer, since you like talked about 24 frames per second and the Hobbits, that you are a lot into cinematography and stuff too.
Yeah.
And so I personally have really enjoyed it when you see an anime series that very clearly has a lot of passion for cinema. I think have you watched Dan Da Dan?
I have.
So I think very clearly you have like a director who also, I mean, the opening is so fun. But like shows that play uniquely also with color and with, you know, like weird camera angles. I'm like kind of curious how like how do you feel about that, and how does that apply to, because I think for me it's very fascinating taking imitating for example a fisheye lens, going very close to someone's face, like replicating that in 2D. But I think must also be like interesting. Do you just I assume you have like fake lenses, I guess, that you can pop on, and like how do cameras work in 3D animation?
Great question.
Yeah.
Honestly, what's really cool about 3D is that cameras work almost exactly the same as real life.
Okay.
So you have a real camera, you can move it around, you can change the focal length, and you can do a bunch of crazy stuff with it that like you can mostly do in real life as well. You don't even have to mess with, I mean, you can even put like a lens in front of it if you wanted to, and it'll calculate that shit. It's kind of crazy. But like, generally speaking, the biggest difference between 2D and 3D is the camera. The freedom that you have with camera movement in 3D is like unparalleled. It's better than live action because you can get drone shots for free.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can get crane shots for free.
You can do like kind of the impossible, like one of my favorite shots in like cinema is like the classic Harry Potter Prison of Azkaban moving through the glass.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Okay.
Exactly what I was thinking. Yeah. That one is it's just an amazing demonstration of like how the hell they.
But I guess in 3D, like if you're doing it in Blender, you can do like you can get really weird.
I mean, that's even harder. That's even hard in 3D, to be honest.
Really?
They did a really good job with it. Yeah, because normally. I can get into it, but like,
yeah, please.
Normally glass is an illusion in 3D. Like it's not actually thick. It's usually just some sort of refraction,
like 1 pixel or something.
Yeah, it could be like really, really thin, or it could just be like a cube that's hollow. Oh, okay. But like it might render as if it's like fully thick. But like when you go through the object, you lose the surface of the thing that is faking it. So you'll go through it, and then you're only seeing like the inside of it, and you don't see the rest of the thickness. So like just going through it in 3D doesn't work that way.
So you'd need to actually create a fake, like translucent layer.
Yes, exactly. There's it's probably being done through some form of volumetrics, which is a whole other aspect of 3D where you actually have like real depth and stuff like that. But I don't know actually.
How would it work, for example, with? Would it be very easy or very hard to, for example, have, let's say, like a beach scene in like Blender?
Beach episode?
And I go, yeah, beach episode, exactly. And the Genshin beach episode, going with a camera, like let's say they're like playing around in the water, and I'm going to go take the camera from the air
into the
water. Is that very hard to do, or is that technically not that crazy?
It's less crazy than the glass.
Okay.
But yeah, it's relatively okay. The biggest difficulty really is if you want that like water line to be perfect during the transition.
Okay.
But like generally speaking, like you can create a volumetric, ocean and like have like an ocean simulation on top and just kind of like move it down. But yeah, you'll just want to make sure that the intersection between the camera and like the thing is actually like accurate, because there's no actual lens. This is the biggest difference.
Yeah.
Like with 3D, there's no lens for like a meniscus, right?
Yeah.
Like the water's not going to touch anything, and so you're not going to get splashes. You're not going to get any kind of like cohesion on the lens that like feels natural or any of that stuff. So
you need to fake that.
You'll have to fake that.
Okay.
Because in Blender, the way it works, like in 3D, cameras just sort of like, they're like, okay, I'll do everything you want except for when it's really close. We're just going to delete it. That's all it does. It's like, we're just going to delete it. Like everything here, too close, delete it. And it's like, okay, that's not realistic at all.
Yeah.
So you'll just start seeing through objects and stuff. But yeah, other than that, it works perfectly.
That's kind of crazy. I think like that's what I'm always, but I appreciate always, because you can really tell if someone was allowed to spend time on it, but also has to know how to, like even for CG, like little things like having water splash on a lens that's not actually there, right?
Yeah, you got to do that manually.
Yeah,
you got to do
that's
that manually.
crazy. How much, like for example, if you do like an animated scene that, because it's obviously like what you do in terms of animation would be very different from like actual gameplay physics, right? Do you do a lot of post-processing too then, like adding little things? Okay.
Well, actually, I was going to ask you about the compositing that you're doing. Is that is that After Effects?
So I do my compositing. The reason I got into this is because I have a very skilled artist who does my thumbnails. Like I think for the last 4 or 5 years. I think that was back in the day. This was like a big, no one has done this in the anime niche. Have actually like an artist to like create custom art of like the characters.
Yeah.
Nowadays everyone has an artist, right? So it stopped being a bit unique, and I think a lot of people like kind of took, because I just used to do like the very regular, anime One Piece style, and I think that a lot of people started doing it, and like I think it stopped being unique. And I think there's like a lot of AI channels and just like anime farm channels out there who kind of like use a very similar, like my art style, I guess, was very copyable in a lot of ways. And so I could kind of see that, it stopped being unique. So I wanted to do something different with it. And I basically, so the two things we did was my artist started using thicker line art too and just gave it more character, which is very nice. It was a really cool choice because it has like a very different effect also on a smaller thumbnail. You can see expressions better.
Yes.
But the other thing I really wanted to do is really have my thumbnails feel like a finish, like this is a screenshot from an anime, but that someone kind of like, the classic, someone screenshotted it and then like it, like you kind of have like the artifacts and stuff. So basically I started looking into, okay, how do I actually take the character art that by itself, like it's very well done by my artist, but looks kind of too clean, and like if you just put a background on it, it looks like it's not supposed to be there. And I was like, okay, how do people actually, so this was like a whole journey I had like I think last October for like 2 months. I was like digging really deep on like I didn't know the word compositing before. Like I think when people maybe hear it first, you think like, because I thought of composition, which is obviously which is also important, where you place things in an image or in a movie scene, which is also I think for 3D animation obviously very difficult.
It's so weird how similar those words are.
but compositing is actually kind of putting all the different layers that you have together and adding elements that make things realistic. So for example, I think the best example I would have is like Makoto Shinkai. And so basically what you would take for like one of his scenes, which are like very photorealistic, right? You would take, even for 2D animation, you would have the character who's animated by itself, and then you'd maybe have like foreground elements like that are in there. So it's all in layers, right? Kind of like a puppet theater also, right? Like the paper theater thing.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
So same for 3D, what we talked about earlier. You have like a background that doesn't really change. And so what you would then, like compositing is basically taking all these individual elements, putting them together, making them feel like they're the same scene, and then also adding in things like lens flares or like light effects or like, like a little like reflection and things like these. And it just puts everything together. So the way that I've been, and I'm sure like this is still very much amateur, but like the things that I've been doing is just like adding in I kind of wanted to create this like more like 90s, 80s style anime look to my thing.
That's cool. That's cool.
Adding a little bit of chromatic aberration, which is this like splitting a little bit of red, blue
RGB.
and green, RGB, that I think people know. We can put something up on screen, right?
Yeah.
People will know what I mean. Like stuff like that, or like having this little like slight bloom of like highlights that just like, or even the like everything bleeds a little bit weirdly into each other. Like it kind of gives this bad screenshot look, but in a like I think in a good way, it kind of puts everything together. And then it's like other things, obviously, right? As like I mean, you can probably tell me, which is why I'm so curious about it. You can tell me more about it, but it's like interesting things like, okay, for compositing, if I have this anime character and it's like shaded in a certain way, and I put it in a room, I got to make sure that the light source actually matches where the shading is, right, on the character and little stuff like that. I got to make sure that if the skin of the character is quite warm, but the environment I put him in is like feels a lot colder, I need to adjust the white balance and like little things. And it's like all these making sure like, oh, there's like so much stuff that I was like never thinking about, like passive light. There's like there's a term for it, I forgot about it, but like
bounce
lighting where like you have to think about like nothing is actually like in real life pure black.
Yep.
Because even if like there's no light here, there's always going to be light bouncing from there to the wall back to my face. So like a lot, it's like, and it was insane to me that there's basically I had to like dig in the deepest depths of the internet to find any information on it.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm super curious to hear your thoughts on compositing.
Compositing is one of the last things I learned, actually, because I I've always made videos on my own at the beginning of my YouTube career, and like I was like learning everything, and like compositing to me was such a foreign thing because again, like there's nothing on the subject. Like I was like, I'll just make it exist and then I'll just like post the video. It's fine, right? It's really interesting that you're getting into compositing and can't find anything, because I had the exact same experience. There specifically anime compositing, by the way, as well, because you'll see a lot of stuff with live action where compositing just kind of means either VFX or color grading, and like you can kind of get by with some color grading stuff and you can do some stuff with that, but like anime is so specific because you do have layers, and like because you're constructing everything from scratch. You have the background, you have the characters, you have the foreground, you have effects, you have all this, like you have all the ambient lighting that you have to put on every single thing. Not to mention when you drew those things, you drew them in their what are called local colors, which is like their real colors, but nobody ever sees those colors because you're always being affected by some other kind of light. So you have to mimic all of that by hand, which is crazy, right? So this is what anime does. They'll usually separate all those things and figure out how to put all the different lights and stuff on it. Now, I don't know if you found it and useful in this way, but I think of compositing as gradients. It's like all gradients.
Interesting.
You just put a bunch of gradient ramps on this thing, and you're sort of like, okay, I gotta get blue here and like yellow here, and like all the colors you choose are usually based on like the light and shadow colors, and like kind of figure out like how do you get this to affect this background in this way, but also this character in this way, so that they blend together, and eventually you get at the very bare minimum what's called an integration pass, which is how do they look like they're in the same scene?
Okay, yes. Is that called an integration pass? Okay.
Yeah, basically an integration pass. And then on top of that, you have the beautification pass. So then you have like the lens flares, the effects. The glow,
so like the different layers. Okay.
That's the part where you just make things look pretty.
I see. Okay.
Right? So the bare minimum is the integration pass. And then, because that's like, you've reached baseline live action.
I think the problem with that for me also, and it's been like very fun because I've been like very much into, again, like also like you cinematography and photography.
Yeah.
But it is still quite like challenging, I think, because you need to learn, okay, how does light work? How does like depth blur work? Like, if I have a foreground element, right? If I have a foreground element that's blurred out, my background needs to be blurred out too, because, well, they're both technically the same distance from my object, right? Or
True.
Little stuff like that. So I think like that first, because like with the other one, you can kind of have fun. You're like, ooh, and I'm doing this for my thumbnails, so it's a lot easier doing this for one static frame.
Yep.
Rather than doing it with like a moving camera.
So many things. Yeah. Well, I can talk a lot about that for 3D as well. It's different.
Oh, is it different?
It's different.
Okay. I'm kind of very curious about that.
For 3D, there's a very distinct difference between like 2D anime and live action as well. You get a lot of information you don't get otherwise. And it's because 3D is so deconstructible. In the software, they can start outputting different passes that will give you a lot more control in compositing. So you actually see a lot more work being done in compositing when it comes to things that use CG compared to either anime or live action. An example of that is a depth pass. So a depth pass is literally just what is the meter value of depth from the camera
in distance.
in distance, and then it'll give you a pass that gives you that whole thing. And sometimes you'll see a depth pass and it'll just be like this cool gradient where it's sort of like things like far away are kind of like more bright, and things that are closer are more dark.
I read about this. Yeah, that's kind of okay. Because again, to me, coming at it from like the I'm gonna have to do it for one frame, and it's like I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put some motion, like I'm gonna put some Gaussian blur, like just some basic blurring on the foreground and on the background. That is true. Like I think I read an article on like, you know, how you actually, the blur is stronger and then you put a gradient on it, so like it becomes less and less moving towards the subject.
Exactly, because that's how real depth of field works. It's
really fun fact. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but like in Japan, in Japanese, it's actually called satsue. So like photography, it's like the same term for compositing. They don't have like a separate word for it.
Very interesting.
So they treat it basically like kind of like fake photography. Is like, how do I make everything look like it's in camera? Yeah.
It's funny because I don't know if that's more or less confusing than composition.
Both extremely.
Like both languages, we're like, we don't know what to call this. Like it's just this thing that we do.
But sorry, I didn't want to.
No, you're good. That's so funny. Yeah. No, but what's interesting about the depth pass is actually it does solve that issue that you have where you have to like calculate. You have to think about like how far is this thing, and
so does it automatically for you?
You can, right? Nice. So like for 3D, you can have a depth of field pass that like calculates based on the depth, and you can tell it where to focus, and like it'll be like boop, and then it'll be like, okay, this is more blurry and this is less blurry or whatever. And it'll gradiate it and everything like that. It
sounds like it would like use insane calculating power to like
super cheap actually.
Yeah, that's so
depth
crazy.
passes are actually relatively cheap because it's just
more like as a whole package that you have
once
the scene
dynamically
with the textures, and then you have the camera movement, which I mean like actually I don't know the coding behind it. But like the fact that like you're doing something 3D and you're creating a fake room, but in the end it's still all 2D. So I think the program still needs to technically render. Like,
so
that's kind of insane.
To be completely fair and credible to computer graphics engineers, yes, it's very hard. It's very difficult. From an artist perspective, it's like a button.
Okay.
You know, like they've done a really good job at making it accessible. But yes,
and shout out to the coders, I guess.
The brilliant developers who figured out computer graphics. Like, I don't even
crazy.
Like I've talked to because like we actually made our own version of Blender in our studio. So like we have a custom build of Blender. So like for context, I have a computer science degree. So I actually have done a little bit of coding like for our studio, and brilliant. So like the stuff that we do at the studio, like I'll actually, we have a developer who like helps us do like the more like granular crazy stuff that we do for our custom build. And like, you know, it's nice that I can at least speak their language and like we can figure out like what we want to do with it and all these things. And then occasionally they start going into like, so the GPU architecture doesn't allow for this thing to happen. I'm like, I don't even know
what that is.
How do you even know like how the GPU works? It's like, you know, like there's so many things about how like this thing is always outdated because the GPUs are so strong now. And I'm like, okay, like the architecture of like this. So that's stuff that I don't understand, but it is very difficult. But once it works, it's like computationally simple, right?
Again, as someone who has never done 3D animation, like in my head, it would be like, like even though we talked about like how displaying it sounds crazy from like a computing perspective, again, as you say, like you have the settings. Yeah. Like in my dumb mind, I would be like, easy. You just tell it, I want this amount. Like I want to imitate an f2 or something lens, right? Which so f is like basically how much depth of field and how much light you let into a camera. So this is like f2, and then this is like f20 or something. So again, camera lenses. So in my dumb mind, I'm just like type in f2, click the button, and I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna place my sun here, and I'm gonna place my street lantern here, and then like do magic and figure it out. That's not how it is.
That is exactly.
Oh, that is how it is.
That's exactly how it is.
Okay.
I mean, it'll depend on the software, but like Blender does have like an f-stop, and like you can figure out like how much depth of field you want based on that, and it'll do it in real time too, which is also crazy.
What is for you then the most, I guess, the hardest? Because I think the nice thing compared to 2D animation, obviously, is if you can actually place a physical light source inside your program, right?
Yep.
That kind of does the like, which again, insane to me that you can do that, and like something calculates where each like light ray actually hits on all the objects in your scene. That is like insane to me. But the fact that you can theoretically like since someone has figured it out, you can just do that and place that light source. You don't need to think like, where does it actually hit properly and everything. You kind of get that effect, I assume, right?
Yes, for realistic stuff, which CG is extremely optimized for, because it was built off of like Pixar's back, right? So like Pixar, like Ed Catmull, like one of the founders, like is one of the founders of most of like, not most, a lot of the foundational shader, you know, complexity and computational stuff that he designed. So there's a lot of like stuff that was built specifically for physical based rendering, which is like everything has to be realistic and it's just based on reality, and that's easy. So in that sense, like an integration pass isn't as necessary for like a realistic render, because you do have a light that hits both subjects, and like the background has the same light, so you have all these things affecting it, and you got a rim light because there's, you know, all this stuff, which is nice. You can cheat some things in 3D too, which is nice. Like you can have like a light that affects only the character and not the background.
Okay.
Can't do that in real life.
Yeah.
But
that'd be nice.
Yeah. Yeah. But like in stylized stuff, so for Spider-Verse or for the stuff that we do, none of it's helpful. None of it's helpful.
So you got to do it everything. You
So
got to
much.
like, oh, I need to put like, is it like literally you saying like, okay, here's the shot. Like, I assume you finish like the entire camera movement and everything first.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I want to have like red glow on his face. So I'm just gonna, if the camera ends here, I'm gonna place like a little red light here, but then I want to balance that with like a little blue light here.
Yeah. So you can do that. There's a couple of small issues with how the shaders work with anime stuff, because it's all flat shading, right? So like if you have flat shading, but you also want the environment to cast light onto the flat shading, it starts to act a little strange. Like it kind of depends on how you do the calculations. Some people have figured out a way to get that to cast light onto the characters directly, and some people can't. It's just sort of like the shader is based on just the direction of light, and you get like a light and shadow color of like the character. And that's fine. And I think currently right now, the best results that I've seen, we've tried doing like 3D environmental lights and casting onto the character, and that's nice. And it can be automatable to some extent. But the best results are when we do all that in in compositing. So we are doing it manually. We are doing like the red glow you talked about. That's in After Effects. That's not.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, oftentimes. So like we'll
Afterwards,
do that, and then we'll do like the blue, and then like we'll make sure that all is there, so that we have something that feels like there was a light there, but actually there wasn't. Yeah.
So you actually, is it kind of like real filmmaking then, where you try to do as much as you can in camera, but then you still kind of need to do.
That's my philosophy.
Okay.
Now, there's a lot of people who I've tended to not do as much in compositing, because I've always been like, well, as much as we can do in camera, the better, because we can see it and preview it and all that stuff. But there are 2D artists and like people who are in the anime industry and stuff who are like, why?
Yeah, just do it all in
just
After
do it
Effects.
all in compositing. So this is actually an interesting comparison, because like, for example, like Studio Orange, if you're familiar, they did, you know, Trigun Stampede, Beastars. They do a lot of really good, beautiful 3D anime. And they're one of the leading 3D anime studios in the world right now. And yet they do most of their stuff in After Effects.
Okay.
So they will actually do a lot of the lighting in After Effects and stuff too. So they are still basically mimicking a 2D pipeline.
I do wonder from that perspective.
Yeah.
Because I guess if you wanted to go more for that realistic 3D look, that maybe, for example, if you're like, you know, again, talking about Hoyoverse, because that's like a lot of the stuff you do, obviously.
Yeah.
Because like, I think that's not supposed to look 2D anyways.
Yeah.
So I think in that case, it probably plays your favor to do more of that stuff in Blender or in like in software.
You can.
But I assume, for example, Beastars, I would assume that because if you want to mimic more of a 2D style, doing everything on top.
Yes.
Probably gives you more of that. Like I can layer. I don't actually, do they layer like a little bit of a paper texture on top? Like I do that, for example, for my thumbnails, doing like a little, give it a little bit of grain, give it a little bit of like a paper, like just 2% of like a little, and it just stacking a few effects on top kind of gives you that, oh, it's actually all printed on like one surface vibe.
Yeah. Some people will do that for sure. I don't think Orange does that, but like, there's definitely people who add a little bit of texture, a little bit of grain, a little bit of bloom as well. The bloom is super nice.
How do specifically for anime, and I guess it is like it applies to Spider-Verse too. I think one really big thing for me from compositing, like the reason I even started thinking about it was like I learned a lot about like, oh yeah, you actually got to think about where the light like made sense once you, but like the main reason that I actually started looking into this before knowing what it was that I felt like the clean line art often felt weird, like if you put a not custom made, like I took like some random blue sky.
Oh,
how do you do it, for example, for 3D animation? Because 3D would be different from 2D, where for 2D I can just you do all the like, oh, little bloom on top and little this and that, and it kind of like the line art melts a little bit into the background, and the background melts a little bit into the line art, and it kind of smooths everything out. But for 3D, that must be then like, is that a different technique? Like, how do you get it to look like that anime style character is actually with the line art in the like? I think the line art actually, now that I think about it, the line art in general in 3D must be like a whole thing.
So that's what I was waiting for, because like line art is such a whole, it's a big topic in 3D. But the reality is everything you just described is exactly what we do.
Okay.
Because we export the passes, right? So we'll have like a line art pass, as if somebody drew line art on a separate pass, and then we'll put that on, and we will add the bloom, and we'll get that bleed, which feels really nice.
Yeah.
So you're onto it. Like you know exactly what to do. But like the calculation of line art in 3D, that's the part that's really complicated. And it's a solution that like a lot of people have struggled with, but there's tools out there. So the one that we use is Psoft, which is a Japanese company, and they made a product called Pencil Plus that they use. I think they used in, for example, like at Studio Kata for the Evangelion movies. Okay. And like the Pencil Plus calculation basically uses like intersections and like depth and like the geometry of the models to calculate how most likely a 2D artist would draw these lines. And it's not always accurate, but like it gets a pretty decent result across. Okay. So you do have to cater it a little bit. Like we restrict.
Can you play around with it a little bit? Okay.
A little bit. Like we restrict lines from drawing on certain places on the face, for example, so you don't get like a random line here or whatever. Yeah. Like that's a really good technique, and you can do it for the hair and other things like that. So you restrict it in a way that it gives you the best results, and then you get something that pumps out something that's mostly good. And then I would say, like, because line art is so difficult to do for the most part, some people will actually go in and redraw it for certain frames. And so that's where you get the cleanup that you talked about later.
Yeah, that's what
it also applies to line art really well. Like line art and shading are the two biggest things that you have to clean up by hand, because 3D doesn't do it very well.
If you just animate a regular like anime character model, does it just, like, if you just animate it as is, I guess it doesn't have any line art at that moment? Is it just like color next to, is it just like,
yes,
okay,
it's lineless, yeah.
So it looks a bit weird then, I assume.
It's a little kind of like watercolory, to be honest. Yeah, like so line art is calculated at the very end because it's camera dependent, and it's pose dependent. So like you can't actually have it so always crazy on. Yeah, it's what's interesting is you can do this. You can have it calculate live. Your computer will just die. Yeah, like it will not be happy with you. There's so many calculations that have to be done in real time. That might change in the future. But like for now, it's relatively heavy. So the line art happens at the very end. When we animate, it is very much like just the shaders, just the colors, just the shapes, and that's it. Yeah,
that's so cool.
Yeah.
So what are you're doing the first pass you do is the what do you call it? Just the merging it together?
Integration.
Yes. Integration pass, you do a line art pass, and then on top of the line art you do like the
beautification.
Beautification, yes. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's the bulk of it. And like
that's so cool.
The integration and the beautification can both use gradients depending on what you want to do. Like beautification can include a little bit of color grading as well as some effects. And then of course you have the effects pass as well if you have any explosions and things like that.
I think the gradients for me are like, I mean, maybe I'm also overthinking it, but I'm always like, because I've seen there's again, maybe I'm just not looking in the right places. I found like 3 or 4 like. And they're not even the best tutorials on YouTube. Like, they're just okay tutorials that talk about this stuff. And I do know they talk about, okay, there's a light source here. So, I'm going to take the gradient and, like, it's going to, like, be brighter here and then slowly go down in the hair. But then you need to, like, readjust that gradient every time. And the hair moves a little bit, right? Like, yeah, that's kind of crazy. So, yeah, like, to me, the gradient thing, I don't know, maybe it's, like, for you just not that complicated, but it seems insane.
It depends on what you want to do. Okay. Yeah, I mean, for me, I think of the gradients sometimes like based on the character's shape and size and all
Mm.
these things, and sometimes it's just based on like the frame. So like you just make the frame like that,
Okay.
and it kind of works okay. Or if it's like a light source, you just like keyframe it from here to here as the camera moves,
Yeah.
sort of counter animate it. But yeah, you got to do all that. But it's definitely a process that, like, you know, by the end of it, it feels really, really nice. So like you feel motivated to do it. But sometimes in the moment, you're sort of like, like, got to move this thing like 5 pixels over again. You know, it just depends.
I think from like, I'm gonna say something really rude here. I think when I first, and this is like the classic coming from 2D animation and being like really loving this like old school anime vibe, right?
Yeah.
When I first saw like some anime with like the more sloppy, badly integrated like 3D models, like the classic big monster that suddenly looks like it's super out of place here. I'm just like, look at these like actual artists who like drawing and everything, and then like someone did a 3D model, how lazy.
Yeah.
After learning about all the compositing stuff, I'm like, okay, well, if you actually do a great job, it's like with it's like kind of like with the beauty surgery or something,
right?
It's like if like you only notice if someone does a really shit job with it.
That's true.
Yeah, and then it stands out. But like you're probably never gonna know if someone is like really good with it. You're good.
Yeah.
No, good. So I think like that is like a full. Again, I was not aware of this until like a couple of months ago, but it's like a full art form basically.
It is.
Yeah,
compositing makes a big difference. I will say though, because when you talk about like the bad CG stuff, there's so many other aspects that can go wrong that like it's not just the compositing. You can have a really, really bad model and it can be really well integrated and it'll still look.
What are some like do you have like some favorites like God, like this one has really turned out horrible kind of example?
It's tough to say. Obviously the biggest example is Berserk, right? Like that was just a full 3D thing, and like
what year was that? That was like super early still.
It was
right?
early. It was very early. So they didn't really know
2011 or something? I don't know.
Yeah. So like they didn't really know what they're doing. It was a very young art form for doing that 3D 2D stuff. So no one can really blame them. But there's other examples that I can think of like that are more recent that are, you know, like they're cost saving measures, like big armies and stuff like in anime. I think Overlord has a couple that are just like.
I think Shield Hero had a really bad one with the turtle.
I don't think I've seen that one, but
yeah,
like so one thing that's actually really specific that people also tend to forget, and this is something that I feel passionate about, the integration between 3D and 2D. A lot of people look at that as a, it's kind of like a rendering issue, right? There's like, oh, like the metal looks weird, and like, oh, like the model looks weird, or the compositing looks weird, and it's a very sort of the solution always feels like it's supposed to be something that is just like the way they executed it was wrong. But there's one other aspect that I think is really important, which is the animation. So the animation has to also fit the level of quality of the rest of the
I guess especially if your anime characters are moving fairly fluently, and then you have like the no ease in, no ease out, just like linear.
there's one particular aspect of animation that sets it apart, and this is something that is really interesting to see, and I think you'll notice it next time. In 2D, when people draw, there's a very, very I would say like it's been beaten into like 2D animators' heads. Like when you draw a pose, you need to have a good silhouette. Silhouettes are like incredibly important for like readability, especially at that speed. So every pose that they do, even like the in-betweens, you'll always be able to generally make out where their limbs are and like what action they're doing and all these things. Which is,
so that means that like the entire body is visible, or
visible in a way that like, so basically the test for a silhouette is if you like pause a frame or you take a pose and you just like turn them to complete black against white.
Okay,
can you still read who they are and what they're doing?
Gotcha.
Right. So good silhouette is the key to readability. And if you are doing this for every pose in 2D, even like for the passive poses, when you're just like doing nothing, like they're not moving, but they still have a good silhouette, right?
I wonder if like in my head this just went like, this might be something that applies to thumbnails too. Never thought about that.
Yes, 100%. It does. It does for sure. Because readability and that's a whole, that's the thumbnails. But so because of that, you'll generally get a baseline level of quality for readability there. However, 3D animators don't learn this early on. It's actually really, really interesting because 3D has dynamic cameras. So you really don't know which camera you're going to be looking at it from. So like silhouettes are like, people teach about it and then they say like silhouette's important, but like executing it in 3D is sort of like but like I don't know where they're going to put the camera. I don't know like if, you know, there's going to be like a silhouette that reads from this angle but not this angle. And on top of that, they're usually posing from multiple angles, because in 3D you kind of like, you have to move the camera to sort of pose the person properly, because you want the right pose and all these things. So what ends up happening is the 3D CG characters don't have good silhouettes, but the 2D ones do, and that actually sticks out probably more than anything else. It's weird, because all the extra stuff, like the good model, the good shader, the good compositing, like those are important, but I personally think the animation, the posing, the difference in training between the 2D animators and the 3D animators is why it feels different.
And creates a bit of friction there.
It creates a bit of like, yeah, they don't blend. And you'll see this really, really strongly in Guilty Gear. The opposite effect. Guilty Gear is a 3D, so Guilty Gear XRD is...
I've not seen it, yeah.
It's a game, but it's really famous in the 3D, 2D anime community, because the technical like accomplishment that they made, especially at the time, they were the first one to really be like, hey, this is fully 3D and you cannot tell. Like, it is really, really good. It feels like it could be a 2D anime or something. And they accomplished it by basically saying, like, we're not going to hire 3D animators. We're going to take our 2D animators and train them to do 3D.
Okay.
And we're going to pose every single bone. I think it's like 1,000 bones per character or something. Every single hair strand by hand. And they made it so that the 2D animators, with their previous training, were able to pose these 3D characters almost perfectly. And that made such a big difference. And I think like the shaders were good.
Specifically for cutscenes or?
No, gameplay.
For the gameplay itself too?
For the gameplay itself.
How do you... Wait, how do you silhouette then in gameplay? Just like for the running animation.
It helps because Guilty Gear XRD is a fighting game.
Okay.
So the camera's actually static. Okay. Like you always see them from one angle, and during the like the cinematic finishers and stuff, the cameras are predetermined. Okay. So that's why it works.
So basically they went in and like manually did every single movement that the character can do.
Yes, and they animated to camera.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the camera does not change. Okay.
The camera doesn't change. Yeah. So like
So you can't rotate.
You can't rotate.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's more like Guilty Gear was traditionally a 2D game, so it was always just like a fighting game where you're always looking from one side, and they have all the move sets and everything animated even at a low FPS.
Man, that's so crazy.
It looks gorgeous. Yeah. And so they always prioritize silhouette anyway, because that's also important for fighting games too. And so that strength in the level of posing skill, frankly, that they had, and the focus on that, I think that's honestly what made the biggest difference. But a lot of people still focus on the shaders and like the models and like how they did the line art and like all these things. These are great, but man, the posing makes such a big difference.
That's crazy. Okay, I never thought about that.
Yeah,
I gotta write that down.
Most people don't. Yeah,
it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Is that something that's also like? Does that come specifically from anime, or is that like relevant in like art and stuff too?
Oh yeah, for everything. Yeah, okay. Silhouette is a strong thing in most art classes when it comes to human like gesture drawing and stuff like that, where you want to capture something really quickly. You want to capture a good silhouette. You want to make sure you can convey something really efficiently.
How did you is it like because again you say you have like a computer engineering background, so I assume you didn't went to art school.
I did not go to art school.
How did you just, again, like this lack of resource about all this, like did you just get little tidbits here and there, or how did you teach yourself? It
was such an organic process. But like at the beginning, because I used to draw a lot. I haven't drawn in ages, but that's because
I can relate to that.
Yeah, 3D just sort of took over my life, and I was like, okay. But I definitely picked up a lot of stuff throughout the years as an artist, doing drawing and then I did live action for a little bit as well. So composition and camera work came from my live action experience.
Yeah, I was just like randomly, sorry, I keep interrupting. I was like,
oh, you're good.
Having a little brain fart, like wow. So I guess that makes sense. Like silhouetting, I gotta look into it, because I guess that would very much be a big part of compositing in live action too. Yeah.
Yes, it affects a lot of things. I mean, it's much harder to control in live action in the same way that it's harder to control in 3D. Yeah. Because like you don't have a frame by frame level of control
over it.
Yeah, you just sort of like, if the actor does something
camera,
it's like, well, that's what we get. That's
like do the proper exposure or something.
Because
obviously there's like a lot of very iconic moments where it's like maybe the character is actually in silhouette, but it's still very clear what they're doing.
Yes,
like something coming and putting their hat on or something. Okay, sorry, please keep going.
Well, yeah, well, it's interesting you say that, because in live action, even if you were to record something like that, you would probably have to choreograph that movement specifically so it reads.
For the camera, yeah.
Yeah, because if you have no information but the silhouette, you got to move differently.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like those kinds of things are exactly what you have to think about in the animation as well.
Interesting. Nice. So like no specific resources that you use, just like little tutorials and like.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I picked up a lot of things along the way. At the beginning, I was focused on Blender, so like I had like a whole month where I was just like looking up Blender tutorials and just like knocking shit out.
How to make a box.
Yeah, no, literally. It was like just one by one. I was like, okay, I got to learn this skill, I got to learn this skill. And so that got me to a point where I could start making videos, and then I started like applying my filmmaking knowledge onto like animations, and like started making animations. And you know, animation itself was very self-taught for me. I think like generally speaking, I've always been very fascinated with movement, so like that helped me a lot with like getting balanced and everything, feeling okay. But the silhouette and stuff, like, and even compositing, I didn't learn until much later, where like we were really trying to push ourselves in terms of the studio and what we can do. And I had not really been thinking as much like a 2D artist as I should have until I met other 2D artists in our studio. And like they started being like, oh yeah, like this is stuff that I've learned. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And like I'll pick it up from like, you know, our artists in the studio and like other people I've talked to.
And they learned it at school or something then maybe, or
most of them haven't been to our school either. But
interesting. So it's maybe just like a natural process, because I'm like, I'm so fascinated that I don't know, like again, like getting so deeply into it, and I was like, it's so hard. There's like some books that talk about it a little bit, like I got like a really cool just regular art book that talked about satsue, so like again like photography / film compositing. But like it was like, oh yeah, like in my artwork I like you know, I add this passive light but don't use too much, like very interesting. But like it was like one chapter in like this entire book about how he creates his art, and like there was obviously a lot about composition and like color choice, and I'm like, there's no book about just this. I'm like so fascinated by it, and it's like so hard.
It's tough, honestly. I don't even know, I can't even think about like what I would. I'm sure there's some tutorials that I could send you that would be decent at capturing like a good chunk of the anime pipeline. I know some people, like if you talk to Otaku Versus at any point, like they have a really good pipeline. They've basically copied like the Japanese pipeline for animation, and they have a really good handle on it. So like there's so many different ways to do it, but like at the end of the day,
maybe that's just the secret sauce that you need to earn yourself.
I mean, to some degree, there's like an intuitiveness to it. But there is a lot of resources out there on like that are kind of scattered, I would say, like on Twitter, for example. Like I actually found like this random PDF that somebody shared about compositing, and I was like, where did you get this? And they're like, I don't know, just something like, so we've also found it randomly. And I was like, okay, right? Like things like that. It's like there's no like central source, and it just, I don't know if it's because no one knows what to call it.
I know exactly how to look for it also. Like I mean, I Google like, how do I make anime, like how do I make like layers look cohesive, or like I don't even remember like something.
There's no like there's very little like specific terminology for that,
like how to I think I was literally like how to merge layers for anime or something.
And what's crazy is like the term compositing doesn't even mean the same thing within English. Like for like live action, for example, when you do compositing, you're really just like putting the VFX into the shot, for example. It's usually VFX. And the color grading and what's called finishing is actually not called compositing at all. That's a totally separate thing. So the gradients and the integration paths, that's like a different person. You're just like putting it in. Like that's what compositing is.
For animation though, like for anime it would be then, right? It would be everything. It would also be like,
that's what I call it. You know, I don't even know.
So,
I don't even but yes,
like
exactly.
color filters and whatever.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
So people have just random like the terminology is not really agreed upon.
Do slightly moving topics here. Do you guys build your own models too? Because obviously that's like, we've been talking about animating models. But creating models is like its whole own thing, of course. It is. And I mean, I guess people have maybe more of a sense for it now with like VTubers being a big thing and whatnot. But
no, we do.
Yeah.
We do everything from scratch whenever we can. Like there's situations where, like, for example, when we do like Genshin and stuff, like we'll have the Genshin game models as like a basis, and like they'll have like the models will exist in a way that like we can reuse parts of it. But like for our specific style, we really like to have like anatomy and stuff in a certain way. And like the face will have to be redone because we prefer having the things that I talked about with like a custom face with like the malleability that we need for different camera angles and stuff. Like, you know, Genshin doesn't have that by default. A lot of games don't have that. So yeah.
What have you guys done like VTuber models and stuff too?
I mean, I have a VTuber model.
Okay, cool.
So I've done
for streaming and stuff.
Yeah,
nice.
I have my own. And
okay, let's go.
I don't think we've ever made anyone for anyone else.
Okay,
but yes, I know a lot about VTuber models.
That's crazy. So if you make, I mean, either VTuber model or just a regular character model, right?
Yeah.
Do you? Because okay, I'm gonna tell you what I think the process is, and you correct me. Like, I would assume you still need very much a 2D artist who like actually creates a sketch, and then, you know, like you probably have like a front, like obviously like a bunch of positions where you see the character from probably, and then someone needs to go in there and be like ball and like, oh, now we're gonna model like kind of like clay basically, but with your mouse. Which to this day I don't quite understand. Like, do you actually I think you can like probably 3D scan stuff and then like work on it, but like, is it not kind of crazy doing like smooth lines and like cheeks and stuff with a mouse? I don't know, like seems insane to me, but
great question. Great question. So first of all, yes, you do need a 2D artist.
Okay.
So that's the designer. So you'll have a character designer who will give you the front, side, back view and like all the information you need for the modeler to actually do the thing. And then from there, you have a couple different modeling techniques. So the way you described it with like a ball and like kind of a clay, that's called sculpting, which is what it's called in real life too. So very easy to remember. But yeah, there are people who sculpt, you know, characters just from
digitally.
Digitally from scratch, and like they'll create this whole thing and they'll smooth it out. And it's a whole process where you're basically like kind of smoothing things out like with your hand almost, like in a way that like you're minutely sort of finessing the model into existence.
Can I ask you really just for that before you go into the other, is that like because I assume I think I've seen it just in the back of my brain, I don't remember where, like maybe some video or like behind the scenes that you actually like you click, like let's say I have the ball, I click and then I pull something out, right? How do I grab, like do I grab, because what I would do obviously in real life is grab the ball and then pull. How do I like, is the ball just fixed and I just pull where I want to, or
yes, the ball is fixed. The ball is fixed.
But then also, okay, so do I always need to face exactly the right direction?
Really good question.
Pull him.
Really good question. You're in the experience already. Like,
I'm like so fascinated.
You're like already there. You're like, which button do I press?
Yeah,
like,
literally.
We can get into that. But like, basically, there's a very interesting problem that people have had to solve for sculpting in 3D on like a 2D screen, and that is like the direction of input. And one of the things that they do specifically, like in ZBrush and also in Blender, where sculpting is really popular. So you have a cursor that is more like a 3D cursor than it is a 2D cursor. And it doesn't exactly exist in 3D space, but it can detect what surface you're hovering over. And it'll sort of like, so there's like a thing, let's say you have a ball here, and the cursor is just like a mouse, right? It's just sort of like clicking in this 2D area. But like what it draws on top of this ball for an indicator is like this circle that kind of like is like this. It kind of sticks to the surface of the ball. So you can actually pull to the right, even though your mouse is here. But you can pull to the right there.
I think, okay, again, I have never used Blender, but it is like, has like little arrows and stuff, right? So you kind of know.
It'll have arrows as well. Yeah. So you can also like move in the X or Y direction if you want to, like kind of like that as well. So there's different ways you can manipulate the axes inputs, and then you can like rotate the camera as well, and then do all these other things with like the screen space of like, okay, then you rotate it. So like what you're talking about when you talk about like the ball and you're holding it like this in real life, and you want to turn it like this, you're doing the same thing in 3D, but you're rotating the entire view rather than like rotating the ball.
What great! This is so insane to me, because obviously, like if you've ever in art class or something tried, like I remember like doing in high school in our art class, we do like an actual like creating a face with clay. And like if you have your hand where you can actually like have more of a feeling for it, that's already crazy hard. But like then doing that with a mouse seems insane to me.
To be fair, some people swear by using tablets, so like a pen and tablet input instead of a mouse to do sculpting. Some people say it's better and easier. I think either one is crazy. Right? Like neither one of these is an intuitive input system for like sculpting.
And again, feels like it's like almost its own art form. Are those, do you know if, I mean, I assume you have 1 or 2 people in your team, or 3, I don't know, like how many do sculpting?
We don't actually sculpt that much for
Okay,
ourselves.
okay.
Yeah, we do a different kind. There's actually there's 2 other types of modeling. The other one is called poly modeling or box modeling.
Mm-hmm.
So this is instead of a sphere, you'll do a box.
Okay.
And then you'll start to like, instead of pulling the sculpting sort of like softness around, you actually just say like, duplicate this face and like make it longer and like make it smaller and like kind of extrude out like an arm and like kind of like do it that way. And it's kind of like sculpting, but it's a lot more like kind of like mathematical almost, like polygonal, right? So you focus on like the actual polygons, which is what all 3D objects are made of.
Okay.
Just like some sort of shapes.
So I guess if you zoom in enough, it would never be like perfectly smooth.
Exactly.
It would always be like a triangle, I guess. Or?
Triangles are the foundation of it,
Okay.
but usually people use quads, which is
Okay.
just 2 triangles
Okay. Okay.
for, you know, cleanliness. But yeah, the entire model will be built that way. And then there's another way, which is actually closer to what we do, which is called edge modeling, where you just
so where someone's edging on it. It's like watching some porn on the,
yeah,
on the left.
it's like,
screen.
oh, this is gonna look so good.
Like, you can't finish until you're done the model. And they're like,
Oh
so
my God.
fast. That's so fast.
Yeah, I mean, you know, VTubers. Anyway, so the edge modeling is actually specifically a way where you don't model faces or polygons. You just model a line of like where you want the silhouettes of these characters to be, and then you figure out like the kind of like if you were doing like a wireframe in real life, like do a wireframe of the sculpt first. You do that and you figure out all the extremities, and then you figure out how to fill in the rest of the faces afterwards. And that gives us a lot more artistic control. So that's what we tend to prefer in our work, and it depends on the modeler, to be fair. But yeah.
So again, like either 3 of these techniques like blows my mind.
Yeah.
How okay. Because I can kind of conceptually see how you could make a really good model digitally, like after having you explain it to me. But that's still like if you asked me, and like even if I imagine I had like 5-10 years to like learn this, I would still be like, oh, making something that actually looks like a real hand, wouldn't that take like weeks and weeks to like
Yes.
So it does. Okay.
The answer is yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Obviously, like if you have like a hand that you already made, you can kind of reuse it.
Okay.
Which is nice.
Are there like models that you like, you start, okay, I want like anime girl, let's start already with like the rough out, like someone already spent like 1 billion hours,
yes,
you know, like doing this.
So
yeah,
in 3D, like base meshes, a mesh is basically just like an object, but base meshes are super popular because people will have like a base topology for human beings that they'll use for every character that you just start with. So it saves a lot of time in that sense. It's not like anime where you have to redraw the hand every time.
Everything, yeah. Okay.
Right, which is the difference.
So you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single.
Yeah, you don't have to.
So like you can't, if you want to, you can be like, oh, I mean, like that's, I guess, the classic like Nintendo lazy. We've done this house before. Let's just use the same house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you can get away with it, you might as well.
Sure. Yeah. Do you want to talk? Do you have thoughts on like Pokemon game modeling and stuff?
Oh,
like there's like a whole video I watched like a while ago where it was all like the guy ranting about how the windows are fake and they didn't even bother to create like a little 3D actual balcony thing or something. It's just like a PNG, like a JPEG.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they don't have to do the work to get the money, so that's just.
I mean, I think that's similar to like certain anime where I'm just like, you're printing so much money.
Yeah.
Why would you not? Like, for the love of the game, hire some crazy people to do, like, because they could probably spend like $100 million. Again, I don't know. I have no sense for what like really good 3D animation actually or modeling would cost for, like, but like spend $100 million on just like having someone cook up the like, because Nintendo has the money, right?
Yeah.
Cook up the craziest, like most detailed, and people would love it. Like, yes, maybe people will still buy your game either way, but I'm like, bro, like, do you not want to have a good product? I don't get it.
I would say like to the credit to like Riot is a really good example of this. I gotta sneeze. Hang on.
I'll go for it.
Maybe not. But anyway,
it's gonna be the highlight.
Riot has actually invested in the player experience.
Okay.
They make a lot of money, and then they made so much money they're like, let's make a TV show, Arcane, which cost them so much money that they didn't turn a profit on it at all.
I can imagine that.
Like
yeah.
that is a really good example of what you're saying, where it's like, yeah, you're just printing money anyway, just do it.
Yeah.
So credit to them where credit is due. Like they're actually investing
Doing
in artists and doing cool stuff. But they didn't have to.
I guess so.
So it's tough. Yeah.
I mean, I think like game world design by itself, because I guess it kind of goes into it's also 3D and not animation. I guess kind of. I guess it's like it goes more into like the building the scene, but like you're kind of building the scene for the entire player to explore.
Oh yeah.
I was very fascinated by a game I used to play a lot, like religiously when I was like in high school, middle school, was Lord of the Rings Online. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it.
I haven't played it.
It was like again, I think like they're still developing, they're still building it after like I think it started like 2005. But like the idea always, even as like when I was young, and like usually I guess like you want to be immersed in the world, but even then at that point I was like blown away. And I think maybe now, like I think they did some updates and stuff. I guess compared to what's out there now, it maybe looks a little bit dated, but I think it still looks some of the most beautiful maps I think in gaming. And like back as a kid, I was like, oh, someone had to build this entire map.
It's all AI.
Now it's all like that's my next topic I wanted to get into.
Yeah, that's a whole topic.
Is that so? Because generally, I think if you asked most artists, and I'm like not a big fan of AI and like anything. I use it for my Japanese, and even there, I feel like maybe it's gonna get there. I don't know. Like, but again, I personally, if I watch something and then it's like this was made by AI, like. Even if it was like the best, which I haven't experienced yet. I've never watched anything that was made by AI where I was like, that's so great. But if it gets to the point where I listen to a song and it's like, I'm going to be like, it instantly loses just like its vibe. But
it does.
I could like for 3D animation specifically, I mean, I'm not sure. Would you call that AI? Like to a certain degree, you already use AI when it like estimates, I guess, like light sources and stuff.
It's a big question because this is actually how people felt about computer graphics. Like a lot of the sentiment around AI, not to the same degree, but there was some sentiment of like, you're replacing, jobs that used to be done by 2D artists that are now being done by 3D artists. Like, or even other things. Like the most famous example is the Jurassic Park one, where they had a stop motion puppeteer who did amazing stuff. And then they're just like, oh, by the way, we invented computer graphics, and it looks
CGI,
like better. And he's like, oh, right. And it's like, oh man, and yeah, I mean, it did kind of kill stop motion animation as like an art form because it was so difficult to compete with that. But like, it's interesting because at the end of the day, like as we've started to use CG, it's been very clear that like it's still very human. Like there's so many things that you have to do to get the computer to do what you want it to do, and like that depends on, of course, the style that you're doing. Maybe the computer automates a lot more stuff for photorealistic stuff and stuff like that. But for us, we're still crafting everything by hand, very much so. And it's just really a tool. AI, as much as the sentiment is the same, and this has been an argument that people have used, like, oh, AI will eventually be a tool and it'll just be like everything else. It is different. And I think everybody intuitively knows that. AI is not just a tool. It is a replacement for human creativity. And that's the part that I think gets us the most disappointed when we hear something or we see something that's like, oh, like this feels really cool, but it's AI. And what that kind of means is that it kind of doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it lacks exactly. There's like nothing attached to it. There was like no effort, like no intention with it. It's just like
and it's really weird because we don't really think about it. There's two aspects of this sort of AI topic that I can kind of touch on. We don't have to go too deep into it.
No, I'm happy to.
It's a very, very big topic. So but like one aspect is like a common argument people have is like, oh, like artists copy each other all the time, and like it's just as long as it gets the product out, like what is it, why does it matter, right? And what's interesting is like this is a very capitalistic mindset, right? And I say this because it is strictly focused on the product and strictly focused on like the experience of can you sell this thing or not. And like to that degree, there is similar human-made products that exist that emulate that feeling, which is what you would have called slop before AI slop was a thing, right? And that's just a thing, even if you think about like slime videos on the internet, right? Like no one's like, oh, this is so creatively fulfilling. Like I love this, but you're enjoying it, sure. But it's like, it's just
there for a moment. It doesn't give you anything.
Yeah, it's just neurons are firing.
And I mean, you're getting at a good point where it's like, I think society wise, this like trying to think so there's like two interesting points. I read about this in a book that specifically talked about how we kind of in like the post-war years, we kind of went away from, it was like the normal thing for like the longest time was like, if I'm a painter or if I'm like a woodworker, my job is to make really, really, really good art, do like my best work, and my art's like my product is going to speak for itself, and more people will want this really great, you know, product that like lasts forever and ever, and I'm going to buy a shoe and like a hat and it's going to last like 800 years, right? Until someone figured out like, oh, what if we just do advertisement and have people think that they need our product, and it's just like the minimal viable thing ever. Like I was like into like a really interesting concept called Kodawari in Japanese, which is kind of, I think, something that like, again, interesting book I read recently on a concept called Nagomi, which is kind of like, you know, the Japanese idea of like bringing balance to everything, right? And how like Japan is really good at taking things from abroad, whether it's like pianos or whatever, and like making it their own and like putting like their own spin on it. And so Kodawari is like something that, it's a word you'll run in a lot in Japan, is like often on like food stuff. It basically means like in colloquial language, it kind of means like you just over obsessed with like something, and it's like we put like so much passion into it, and like so when people read it as like an advertising thing, it's like, oh, like on a kombini you see like Kodawari onigiri, and it's like, yeah, we were like our guys like spend like hours like figuring out the best thing. Autism. But what it actually at its depth means, and like what I think people often admire about Japan but can't really put their finger on, is that there's this feeling with Kodawari that you take something that you're passionate about, and you're not only going to make it passable so you can sell it, you want to be like the best guy and do new things with it. So you're not just going to do like, I think the example in the book was like how Japan only very recently actually dabbled in like whiskey and now in wine in recent years, but already like Japanese whiskey in like only like 10 or 20 years has become world famous now.
Right.
And so there was this guy who like taught himself about whiskey, and he kind of was like, oh, like just for the fun of it, just because it's fulfilling to myself, I don't want to just make whiskey that I can sell. Like he wanted to create whiskey that no one else had ever created. He wanted to do like new things with it and do like the best, like become the best at it, and then even more. And I think that kind of goes into it. Like, yes, if the product, if you can like 3D print a burger, it's like the McDonald's thing, is like, it's going to taste good and stuff, but it's not the same as going to like a restaurant where you see the guy actually putting it together. And that's not necessarily just taste or flavor, or like in terms of like maybe AI makes a really beautiful piece of music at some point. Yeah. But if the intention behind it is just not there, I think that's a really good point you made. It's like, I don't know, it lacks this inherent thing that I guess maybe we as humans just like are longing for, which is like, no, so that's like someone put effort in. There's like a certain value attached to it, right? In terms of labor and passion and whatever it may be. Yeah,
it's hard to quantify.
It really is.
That's the tough part about the argument, because it's like, what does that mean, right? It's like, oh, you're just saying that because you don't like clankers or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, well, the most interesting thing, the biggest difference really between AI and humans is the human experience, because it's so individual, and that's something that you learn, you know, as a human too. That like really there's nothing about your experience that you can actually communicate with other people. Like so much of it is approximation of like, this is what I feel and this is what I've experienced. But like,
it's like the classic, I don't know if what I call red is actually the same color to
you. So like when you experience art through that lens of like, this is something that truly means something to the person who created this, there is a certain aspect of like, I am learning an aspect of an internal experience that is impossible to perceive, right? That's really interesting. Now, there is an additional layer of argument on top of that, which is like, if you don't know the artist or if you don't know who made it or whatever, then like, can you still find meaning in it? And it's like, well, technically, yes, you can. But then that's when it starts to reflect on sort of like the commonalities between your experience and their experience that subconsciously starts to tie together, even if you don't know it. And so it's kind of like, can AI give you that feeling? Like to some degree, yes. Like it'd be, I think, foolish for me to say that people are not going to ever enjoy AI stuff. Like there is going to be.
I mean, they already do to a degree.
Yeah, there's people who don't even realize it's AI and they just watch the video. Like, I mean, it's like people saving dogs from like rivers and stuff, and it's like, okay, like this is obviously AI, but like there are people like, oh my god, what a sweet story, and like it's like okay,
But again, once you
yeah,
like once someone tells you that is not real,
yes,
I don't know, maybe that's just me. I don't know, but I feel like it like immediately it just exists for no reason, kind of, right? Yeah.
yeah, it's tough, and there is like an ecosystem here where AI is also being really really um, exploitative. Obviously, its origins were really exploitative. You know, it just stole every piece of content in the world without anyone's permission, and was like, all right, here you go.
When I'm maybe I'm just because I am like just by nature very, anti-AI overall.
Exactly.
So maybe I'm like just not in the right corners of the internet. But to this day, whether it's like yes, like Sora and stuff, and like the videos look realistic, and it's like getting good at like, and yes, the finger stuff is getting better and better. But I'm still waiting. Like, let's just take anime AI. By the way, if you Google anything anime, you will always get like a trillion AI results first, and then something you actually want.
It's terrible.
But I'm still waiting for AI to actually give me like a product where I'm like, that is better than anything I've ever seen a human do. Like the best thing I've still seen to this day is like a piece of art where I'm like, oh, that looks as good or almost as good as something that a real human could do. But it's like, I feel like to this day, and again, like I think this is like a debate, obviously, where some people say, yes, it's going to get to the point where it's going to do its own thing. Or people who say like, no, it can only be as good as what you feed it, basically. And like, I still haven't seen it do anything like where I'm like, no one would have ever come up with this.
Yeah, exactly. It's tough. There's so many arguments from all sides. Like it's just like we don't know what is going to happen.
Has it been a big thing in the 3D animation space?
Not as big as like 2D, because like there is some 3D AI stuff, and like I've seen it, like appear every now and then. And I'm like, I guess some people are doing like 3D printed AI models, which is crazy because you can just generate a 3D model, and I'm like, oh, that's crazy. But it hasn't really affected much. Like, at least for me, I know like for a fact, like we're not using AI, like we're not planning to at all. So it's like, it doesn't affect my personal workflow. Now, when it comes to like, if the industry is going to adopt it and things like that, like it's pretty clear to me right now that like most people are like, the market is not going to enjoy AI stuff on a large scale. There's a lot of backlash.
I mean, I feel like you can always make the argument like, okay, well, what's the harm in like, I'm like animating this crazy scene, and I'm not finding the right model for, I don't know, like this like well I want to have in the middle of town. And I don't really want to spend like the next 8 hours modeling a well. So I'm just going to ask, like whatever AI to like make me a well model. Like, is that already out? Or like, and if it's not out, at what point does it become out?
Oh yeah, I mean you probably could do it. Yeah, I mean if it's something like that, you could probably do it. Like again, like you can generate a 3D model these days, and you can generate it based on like a 2D AI generated image if you wanted to. Like these are workflows that people have tried, but like for me, I'd be like, we're just not gonna have a well. We're just gonna figure it out later.
I don't know what it is like neurologically for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, like can you relate to this thought that if I took this glass and 3D scanned it and turned it into a 3D model, I'd be so much more okay with it than asking ChatGPT to make. But I don't know if this is just me or not. I don't know. Like technically there's also not exactly like a craft in like scanning this. But I think at the very least there's like this, someone took the real object, and I don't know, like for some reason in my mind, even though maybe you could say it's the same thing, I have like way less of a problem with just being like, we want a really realistic tree, so we're going to put a whole tree in like a scanner. Yeah. Like that's so much for me. I'm like, cool, that sounds like a fun thing. Like rather than like asking ChatGPT to be like, hey, you've seen a billion trees, can you please make me a new tree?
Honestly, I totally agree with that, and I can't explain why.
It's weird. Yeah, I really can't put.
Yeah.
Put my fingers on it too. It's like a weird thing. I'm very curious, like where we're gonna get with the entire tech.
Yeah, I mean, it probably has something to do with the idea of like the decisions you make about the world around you versus just having someone just put it in front of you. Like those are two different experiences. It has, I think, a similar feel. I think Brandon Sanderson, he made
fantasy author.
He made an analogy. He was like, look, I wrote this book and I did all these things and I designed these creatures or whatever. But the artist who designed these creatures, like he's the one who came up with these designs. He drew it. He did all these things. I guided him. I told him sort of what to do, but I would never say that I made these creatures. I didn't like make them from scratch. I conceptualized them to some degree, and I helped, and I had a client. But a lot of AI artists are saying, I made this thing. And it's like, no, you were the person who
typed some stuff
who
in.
asked for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I also resonated with your point earlier about, you know, like just what is our human experience.
Yeah.
And again, like just, I guess, I mean, if you give me like, it's like the classic Matrix thing, which I think, again, very cool in terms of also filmmaking and like 3D effects, but also like in terms of its messaging.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I mean, technically you can stay alive just eating like some slop that has all the nutrients.
Yes.
But there is something, like in the end is like the classic, well, the only thing is like the, you know, like I think therefore I am, like the only thing we actually know it like is our experience. And so I think it's like such a sad way to look at things if you're like, well, what's the difference? But it's like all the difference, because how we experience and feel about things is like our entire existence, right?
It is.
And it's like the difference between, you can also ask like, what's the difference between like a studio light and like I can sit here and like read a book, but it's going to be so much more fulfilling like sitting in the grass and like having the real sun and, you know, like having the wind, like there's the aircon on and it's like that's as good as wind, but it's like it's obviously, I think everyone knows instinctively it's not the same thing, and like the context and the meaning behind things and what that means to you and like your experiences, like maybe you have like really fun memories, you know, like doing that as a kid, like traveling with your family, and you're like, oh, I love sitting at the lake because that's what we used to do, and like I have like great memories. So for me it might be like I hate going to the lake because, you know, I was always getting stung by mosquitoes or something, right? And but like for you it's like a fantastic thing, and there's like a whole, you know, that's classic art.
There's a really good quote that I heard recently that messed with me, and it's like, we're the first generation that will die having more memories of other people's lives than our own. Because social media, everything, like the way we consume right now, like it's on a level that's never happened before.
I also don't really think it's going to be sustainable either way. I mean, I feel like already for me, like I've been like trying my best to be on like a pretty strict social media detox, which I'm consistently falling back into it. But I've been like really trying to stay away as much as I can from Twitter and YouTube and stuff. And I still consume, like I started once and then like, you know, like, oh, it's like a little bit here. This is like, you know, it doesn't count, stuff like that. But as like someone who earns their living online and who was like madly in love and defending the internet, like I very much remember having a conversation with my mom when I was like 16 or like something, like I don't know, like 15 years ago or something, and she was like, I think the internet is like really toxic and really bad, and I was like, what are you talking about? She was like, oh, it's gonna have to be regulated. I'm like, are you insane? It's like the worst thing ever. And now I'm like, social media is like so dystopian to like in like such a crazy degree.
Your mom knew what was
gonna
happen. No, it is crazy, but it brings up an interesting point about the inner experience, because like so much of our experience is external now. Like we have so much, like it's almost like we really don't want to confront that inner experience as much as possible. And I think AI does the same thing. Like even as an artist, you don't want to explore your inner experience. You want this thing to do it for you, right? Like that's the part that really gets me about AI art. It's like you're not really exploring, what are you visualizing? What do you see? What do you want to make? Like you're just looking at AI and be like, hey, pump something out. I have like an idea for it, but you got to tell me what it's going to look like and tell me what matters. But like when you really are an artist and you look at like, you know, the decisions you make, so many of these minute things are affected by your personal experience, by your emotions, the things that you feel internally. They give you specifics of like, this is the part that I want you to feel this way for this reason, even from like the way that this hand is drawn, right? Like that matters, but people don't realize that when they make an AI piece. It's like, oh yeah.
I also feel like, because we are obviously like in the peak of AI slop, and I mean, you have like I guess you have like the really big chunk of people who don't like AI, and like if they could turn AI off everywhere, I would. I would just feel like the 2 times a week I use ChatGPT, to like basically be bad Google or bad Wikipedia because like half the stuff's still wrong in it.
Yep.
I'm like, I could live without that.
Yeah.
Then you have the people who are like, no, this is great, and like I'm gonna make 5 AI channels, and like they're gonna pump out 50 videos every week, and I'm gonna make money with it and sell art. I'm like, those people are wrong, because the logical conclusion to that entire enterprise, like if AI is as great as you say, then what's gonna happen is that the really big guys, the companies who are making this AI, they're just gonna, why would you have some random dude make an AI video and watch it on YouTube if obviously Google is just gonna make an app where you can tell the AI what you want to watch and it's gonna make a video for you, and then in the end Google is gonna make the money. And if I don't know if that, like, I wouldn't watch it, but if you enjoy being like, I want to watch a movie that makes me sad and is about a dog, and it's gonna make you a movie, and you're gonna watch that.
Better yet, don't even have to type in a prompt. The algorithm decides
what you want to watch.
What
True.
you're gonna watch
I
next,
didn't even think about that.
Generate it on the fly.
Yeah, and you just swipe.
Yeah, I mean, imagine
that's like so crazy dystopian. Crazy. That's so, but I think that's where we go. Like that's the only logical way you can take. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean,
because why need like some random dude who like types in ChatGPT prompts when, you know, like obviously Google can do it way better themselves, or whoever.
Yeah, they can just write an AI to replace that guy.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's a really, I mean, it's really screwed, dude. Like imagine you watch YouTube and all the sidebar videos are also AI generated on the fly.
Yeah.
You know, everything, like all the comments are AI generated. Dude, dead internet theory is gonna come back.
I think it is like already very much happening.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I think it's gonna have to be regulated for sure, and there's really no way to do that right now because the people in power are not really educated enough for these kinds of things.
When the problem is obviously the people who are creating. I mean, we don't even need to talk about the entire idea that, like, you know, there's a non-zero chance, like no one knows if this might actually come and just wipe human civilization out. That's like a whole different conversation that we're not even having right now. Like, just put that aside. Even by itself, like, all, like, in a perfect world, what AI would do is like replace jobs, and then we all get universal basic income, and like just like, oh, I want to go on a long walk today, I want to write a poem today. Like that would be like, okay, well, I don't need to like work in the call center, I'm just gonna, you know, learn how to play the guitar because that's what I want to do. Like that would be the ideal world, but what's actually happening is that like a few people aren't making all the money.
Oh yeah, exactly. But you bring up an interesting point though, because like, what is the ideal world, right? Like we talk about that as like, okay, we'll have personal freedoms to do whatever we want. We don't have to work anymore. But what is the value of work, right? So there's an interesting question about like, why is it that we generally feel valuable when we do work and are productive? It doesn't mean for everybody, but like it is a human value that we tend to instill in people, and whether that's because of capitalism or something else, like maybe, but like there is a fundamental part of the human experience that isn't actually like, imagine if everybody was just indulging in their hobbies all the time. I don't know if that would be the perfect world.
I also don't think though that people would want to do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because I think what would happen though is that people would still work, but probably in like a way where, well, if you like, you're not gonna die if you decide you want to do something else.
Exactly.
And I think we're specifically, I mean, again, there's always been like dark things in the world and war and whatnot, but I do really think that like what we talked about earlier with, you know, the idea of artisanship and craftsmanship, I think the idea that, you know, you learned how to become a woodworker, and that gave you joy because you didn't. I think this it goes also into a different thing, which is the idea that I think a lot of people in our generation and younger have, that you need to find a work that you're passionate about, when it's actually the other way around. I think personally,
I've heard about that too. Yeah.
And you need to like get good at something, and then you're gonna get
the passion comes. Passion comes.
But yeah, I think very much that, you know, if you take away the like existential risk of like, if you don't work, if you like, and especially like a lot of jobs nowadays where it's like, oh yeah, just, you know, be in this, work for this faceless company and do like you don't meet anyone, and there's like only deadlines, and everyone like wants you to do overtime, like the classic, like here in Japan, like overtime karoshi kind of like, you know, crazy company thing. Like getting away from that, but actually, you know, like, hey, I want to make bread, and I want to make the like great bread, I'm passionate about it. And yeah, you can probably like, yes, you can go to the AI store and buy very good bread, but I'm gonna try something different than you, and I'm gonna we enjoy hanging out at the bread store together, right?
Yeah.
I think that's more what I would then imagine.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think the existential risk of not working should be removed. I think that would be an ideal world for sure. The thing that's most interesting about what you're saying is that I really think is important to highlight is the community aspect of existence. Because as much as like we have personal freedoms to enjoy our hobbies, it's very rare that we can really enjoy them in isolation. And like even the guy who talks about woodworking, he's like, oh, like I want to be the best woodworker. Relative to who?
Yeah.
Right? Relative to what?
Yeah.
And what's the value of that? It's because people can appreciate that. People can use the woodworking in a way that is meaningful to their lives and things like that. So like the community aspect of existence, I think, is really important, that a lot of capitalism and general sort of like mindset in the current, world tends to push us away from. We're like, oh, you can do this thing. You can live a life like this. You can go on vacation and go on to travel the world. It's like, okay, sure. But what if I had like a really meaningful night with my friends and just like talked for like 6 hours? Like, what about that? Right? Like, that's not something that you can monetize or do anything with, but it's something that's really, really meaningful. On the other hand, the things that you do, like a bread shop, for example, like you're doing bread, and like as much as you want to make bread and you want to do these things,
no, you want people to share it with.
You also want to share it with people,
Yes.
and you want to find a way to like spread it everywhere. But then it's like, okay, so then how do you make that, something that you genuinely can do all the time, and like you don't have to worry about work, you don't have to worry about like money, but then like you also have to worry about, sharing the bread in an infrastructure that works, like the logistics behind that, and like also like when you don't feel like working, it's like okay, and other people can take care of you. Because before universal basic income was a concept, like we lived in tribes, and we had people who like if I couldn't hunt that day, I wasn't going to die. They were just going to take care of
you, yeah.
Right? Like that was how community worked, and we've lost so much of that. Like I think UBI could help, and I think like a lot of those regulations could help. We can get to a point where on a large scale we can find that again. But I find it interesting that like, for me, the community aspect of existence is such an important part of the experience.
And I mean, I think most people would know that instinctively.
Yes.
How good you feel actually going out and spending time with people to forget things. But I think there's like a lot of science, as far as I know, also that like the biggest factor about you dying early is loneliness.
Oh,
and
true.
Yeah, and the biggest factor for living a long life is having like a good social network. Is like now I need to sneeze.
Yeah.
Or cough. It's like having like a good community and social network around you.
Yeah. What's really interesting about AI is the level of trust we have for things that are going to be online in the future. Like, just having
it's already zero for me.
Yeah, it's very, very low, and so that includes video calls. That includes text messages. Any kind of social interaction that you have that isn't going to be face to face is going to start looking really sus. And so some people are actually theorizing that AI is going to bring a revolution of analog back again.
I think so.
Which I think is really cool.
I mean, I've been saying this like for a while. I think also on the record, I do think very much so, because I feel that way, and I know people who feel that way. I think there's going to be a pretty big wave over like the next, and it already started a little bit, but not just going back to analog, but also moving out of the city. And I think like this idea that many people have now of just like, I'm just gonna be on and like farm work is hard, I am aware. It's like you know, but I think this idea of like being in nature and just you wake up and you take care of your plants and your chickens, I think that's very attractive to a lot of people, and I think it'll happen more and more.
There was a funny tweet or something I saw where it was like Stardew Valley is the millennium dream that hard work pays off.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh,
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, there's clearly a huge draw towards like a simple life where you can actually have community and you can have like your own like independence
and just plug out a little bit. I mean,
yes,
I've been like thinking that for myself, because I really like, I'm very passionate about YouTube and very passionate about making videos.
Yeah.
But I do like, the one thing I kind of miss is I don't really know when I had like, and this goes back even before I started YouTube, just with social media and YouTube, like watching YouTube as a viewer and like consuming Twitter and whatnot. I'm like, how, like, I don't remember when the last time was where I woke up and I had like nothing to do and I was just gonna like not check my phone and like start scrolling and watching stuff, but just like might go to a cafe and just like sit in it. Like, I don't know. Like, do you ever have that thought?
What a different life.
Yeah,
that would
crazy.
Be, honestly,
kind of crazy.
No, it's real. I mean, it's tough because like it's hard for me to have a day where I don't scroll my phone like at all.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
It's very difficult. So it would be really nice to get back to that. And I think people are already doing that. They're detoxing with social media.
Yeah.
Like people are feeling that. What's also interesting about the AI trend is that like I think AI slop is going to change our understanding or our expectation of quality, because AI's this is already happening as well. AI's got such high production value because it mimics all these Hollywood movies and or whatever else that people think is popular. And it'll do these things that are like, oh yeah, like look how this is the best quality thing that you'll ever see. Like this is better than humans. And then like humans will watch it and be like, oh yeah, it's like kind of shit, right? And so gradually it's gonna train not just us but the newer generation especially that like, hey, like Hollywood level graphics probably means it's bad because it will outnumber legitimately produced content. Yeah. And gradually like high produced content will just look like just fake bad, you know. And we're already seeing this on this outside of even AI. We're already seeing like the genuine, you know, experiences on TikTok or whatever that people really connect with. Those people that they connect with, you know, like the Gen Z shake when they like, you know, always put down the phone when they're recording because they just happen to decide to record that day, right? Like that's that spontaneity and that genuineness is already lowering the production value innately for people to be able to believe it's real. Yeah, and I think people are going to gradually see that in art too. And I think like it's so funny because I think about 3D and I think about like animation, and I'm like, animation is so beautiful. It's such a high quality level of standard. And like if people start copying that with AI, even like Pixar stuff, right? You look at Pixar stuff and they're copying it like well, and like people are going to look at that and be like, okay, that's probably slop. But the stuff that's going to stand out is the stuff that only a human can fuck up. like a human will make something that's like so uniquely kind of like bad and low effort. Like I've seen like really funny, really good videos of like, I think this one 3D animator did like a Lion King reenactment, but in like Maya, and it was like the worst. Like the paws are like stretching here and like the eyeballs are bulging, and I'm like, this is art. Like this is like this is real human art. Like no AI would recreate this, and I think it'd be interesting to see.
I think my fear though
Yeah.
is because I see that on YouTube right now too.
Yeah.
Well, YouTube itself, first of all, has been pushing like the AI slop like crazy, which I'm like shocked by.
Yeah.
Because like I mean like at some point advertisers are gonna find out. Like I'm like
I think it's the volume.
I don't understand it either that YouTube is like promoting it, but that's on them. But what you can already see with like long form content at least compared to like short form is that there already has been, I think, like a move away from like the, you know, Mr. Beast. Everything's like, like super crazy and like more authentic, slow, taking your time, connecting. Yeah. My worry though is that at some point the people who are making the AI slop will see that and it's like, oh, the new meta is sloppy and, you know, like is crude and, you know, make this video like my AI, because there's already obviously, I mean, if you're wondering if we ever get to the point where there's going to be AI YouTubers, that's already happening.
Yeah, it is.
So you can just be like, oh, my guy's going to be like, oh, do a bit shaky cam, do like, you know, like drop the camera throughout or something, right? Like do something. And that's like my fear that is like going to be like a whole meta where it's like, oh, I'm just going to make a authentic, realistic
That's
video.
a legitimate point. It's a legitimate, like the arms race of like, you know, human trends will start to be really difficult to struggle with. And maybe that's where it really does boil down to like, hey, let's just
touch some grass.
Yeah, let's just not be online. Let's just talk to people in person.
Yeah.
And before, as long as we don't get robots that look human, we'll be okay. We can still have authentic human connection. You know, like we'll know that we're talking to a real person.
Yeah.
That's the real trick. It's like, can we actually believe in this authenticity? Yeah.
That's so crazy. I mean, my hope would be that this like kind of collapses in a little bit on itself, and then like once that AI bubble hopefully bursts and like all the funding goes away, I hope that like people will chill a little bit. And I think obviously you're still gonna have like, you know, countries investing in it for like military stuff and whatnot, and that's obviously like scary. But
you watch Dune?
Oh yeah,
you like Dune?
I fucking love Dune. Yeah,
you know about how they're like completely anti-AI in that universe.
Yeah, they the story itself.
Yeah, like the lore.
No, yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic. One of my favorite parts about Dune's lore is that the way they got to the point that they do in like the movie, is they completely banned any machinery that replicates human intelligence. And the reason was because there was actually a huge AI human war in the past, like far in the past. And when they had that war, it was because like, you know, there was a lot of, you know, obviously disagreements between who should exist and who shouldn't and stuff like that. And when they ultimately won the war, somehow, I forget, but like the humans won the war, and they basically banned all, you know, sentient machines, and to replace all those features, because they're a spacefaring race, right? So they're going through hyperspace and all whatever it is, and to replace all of that, they trained humans to the utmost of their capabilities, which is so cool. You'll see in the movie there's people called mentats that are doing calculations in their head, and these are people that are trained from birth basically to do like extreme calculations completely mentally, and like simulations in their head and stuff like that. So like Paul Atreides, for example, like asks like his mentat, like what's the possibility of this, and then he'll be like 3%. And it's like, what the it's like crazy.
That's cool.
And it's like it's all based on just human ingenuity and like human like the beauty of the human mind. And the same, that's exactly why there's spice, by the way. Spice is super, super valuable because it's necessary for space travel. But like they don't have like what's it for? Like they don't really explain it in the movie. But the reason why spice is important, this is so cool.
It's like unlocks your limitless.
It unlocks your ability to like predict and see the future a little bit. That's why Paul Atreides is so like, you know, a visionary in this in the movie, because he intakes a lot of spice.
He's super high.
He's so high, but he also has a really highly intelligent brain that's been trained from young. And also he has like the Bene Gesserit training and stuff like that. So like, which I won't get into them yet because they're also kind of crazy. But like the aspect of like spice being used for space is that they use these like I forget what they're called, but basically these people who consume spice, they are basically tied inside of this room that is like being blasted with spice, where they just stay high all the time. And they're basically navigators where they ask, hey, where do we go so we don't collide into a star, that we don't, and he has to basically predict the future to some degree.
Like human computers.
He calculates time dilation and like relativity and all these things, and he does all this stuff, and he'll be like, yeah, we got to go this way and this way and this way. And that's the computer that navigates them through space.
Oh, that's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a dude tied up in a room that's high all the time. That's their entire navigation system. So Dune is like, it's such a fascinating exploration of like, hey, like, yeah, is it possible that AI will go so far that we completely get rid of it?
I mean, I hope so.
Right? Yeah. And it's like, what would we do without it? And
it's
like,
kind of sad. I mean, because I think obviously there are like so many cool things.
Yeah.
Like I think saying the internet never gets invented, and it's kind of like a shame, you know, if I never get to see One Piece or whatever, what I love. But yeah, it's like gotten to the point I feel where I could personally see it. And I'm not saying I'm 100% sure the internet's going to collapse, but like what I could see is where we like go so much back to the analog world, where like certain things like maybe, you know, banking or like, you know, like your GPS system is like military stuff or whatever is like still online, and you can still like watch movies and stuff, but it's like limited to certain things.
Yes.
And I'm like very convinced that in like 20-30 years, like the generation of like our kids and stuff, I think they're gonna look back at us how we look back on people smoking on airplanes or like not wearing seatbelts.
So right. Oh my god, you're so right.
And like, you guys thought it was okay to like
just browse,
do like basically because you probably know this, that like a lot of like the social media features have been like constructed based on like psychology and gambling psychology. So like the roulette wheel, refresh button and stuff like that. People are going to be like, you guys have been basically, you grew up in a casino your entire life.
Yeah, you've been on crack.
Yeah, you've been, you guys were on crack for like the 50 years of your life and thought that was okay.
Yeah, like from 15, like your brain is stunted.
Yeah, people are going to be like, oh, there was this wave of depression. I wonder what happened.
Yeah.
It's like, people in the 70s, all that lung cancer. I have no idea what could have caused that.
So true. That's so funny. There's going to be like no social media signs like in front of restaurants. Like no. That's so funny. You're right about that. And it's interesting you say that, because like, just for context, like I feel really strongly about all these things because that's what Soul Mart's about. So like our original anime is basically a story about addiction in a capitalistic world and where that leads people. and like ultimately the meaning of community within that. So everything we've talked about, I'm like, yeah.
And it's sponsored by Polymarket, right?
Hey, if it gets the anime made, Oh my god.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Yeah,
it's funny. Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting, and I don't know if the thing that you mentioned about the internet being like more limited, it does kind of touch on why the internet was so beautiful in the beginning, because it created small communities.
Yeah,
forums were a big thing. Like hell, even Neopets was crazy, right? Like all these things where it was just small communities that there wasn't that many people on the internet at the time. Anybody who was, it was like a small knit group of like, oh, like, this is a niche. This is like a fan group of here, like this random website. Everyone really enjoys that. And like having that small community is really where the internet thrives and being able to give people. But once it gets to the point that it's at now, it's become like, man, there's really no like, it's really difficult to find that kind of that ecosystem, right? Where you can really just thrive and grow with people that you can kind of grow up with.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think obviously it was like a nice way where you could, find people with similar interests and, like whole new branches of the economy basically were like created. But obviously, like I think at the beginning the internet was, and I think that's an argument that's still thrown out quite a lot, that the internet like democratizes things. But I feel like in my personal opinion, I feel like we've moved past that point
for sure
a while ago.
and I can tell you why. In my opinion, it's because democracy relies very much on truth. It only works if there's an adherence to truth in some way for the information that gets spread amongst everyone's education. And we're in a post-truth era. We don't know what's real or not. Yeah. We really don't. And we still have this, the only way we really can see if there's truth or not is through these, figures of authority and credibility, which is where we come in. We're influencers.
I was about to say, I mean, you could make the argument as sitting as the influencer here that the ad-based model kind of was the beginning of the end.
That's
for
true.
Like a lot of things. Yeah.
There's some aspect of that for sure. And like even just like the whole idea that you can monetize outrage, like that blew up.
I mean, that is like, I was saying like earlier that a lot of the long form content, which I think is positive this year and last year already, has like started moving towards more let's chill, let's be authentic, let's have which has been fun for me too as a creator who's like, I was like very much on that, like I need to make this like Mr. Beast style content, and it's been very, very rewarding and like nice slowing down and taking your time with things. But at the same time, I think rage bait is like anything that's like short form has just been, I mean, it's been around for a while, and I think that like 2026 is the year of the rage bait.
Yeah.
On like Reels and TikTok and whatnot.
Yeah, no, it's a growing field.
Actually, just to wrap up the AI topic, because it's so, I mean, I think it's important. I do enjoy talking about it, and I appreciate getting into it, because it's like, I don't know, it gets like awkwardly real and awkwardly like philosophical. Yeah. But I think it is obviously like the world we're living in, so I think it's like important to talk about. There's it's
a touchy subject for sure. Yeah.
There's a really cool book I saw in a Japanese bookstore the other day, and like I'm like, now like I've been studying for like 8 years. I'm like at the level where I can like read Japanese books, but that one was like way out of my league. It was like this like socioeconomic / philosophic book on. Do you watch Ghibli movies?
Yeah. Of course.
So the like Nausicaa, like the Valley of the Wind, is that the English title?
Yeah.
Yes. So basically the book was about how can we move away from like mega cities and like stress and this like be productive every day 24-hour society, and like create something that's more like Valley of the Wind, where you actually like, and it's like, again, I didn't buy the book because it's like language wise very clearly would probably be like hard to read in English. Fair. And it's like full of like super technical and like statistics and like technical, but it's this entire book like 2,000 pages, and this guy just like brainstorming how you could create like a village like that's in tune with nature. How would like what would the infrastructure look like, what would like electricity look like, and like the sewage system, and like what would work distribution look like, and like the tax system is like super fascinating. Like I was like, whoa, so fascinating, and I wish I could read it, but it's like I tried like reading a little bit in the bookstore, and I'm like, this is like leagues
Oh my
out
God.
of my range.
Dude, I want to read that book.
I
like,
know,
damn,
yeah.
one day.
But it sounded like I love the concept behind it. I'm like, that is
really
so cool. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, that would be the dream.
Yeah.
There's a version of human civilization that achieved that, and it's not here yet, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, like I'm like always. I really love Tokyo, and I really enjoy like living in the city. But
Yeah.
if it was possible to just get like from somewhere in the countryside, like if we had like some crazy tech where you can just like be in the city in like 20 minutes, I would like immediately move out somewhere.
Shinkansen, you know?
Like, no, right, but like
yeah.
you know where it's like, because I think right now like I like the idea of moving into the countryside, but then in the end you're there and you're like, I'd like McDonald's, or I'd like to you know like meet my friends, and you're like, well, it's gonna be 3 hours by car, which maybe as an American doesn't sound as crazy as like for a European, but
that's fair.
Yeah.
That's actually
that's
fair.
most of the US, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm like a little bit too. It's nice in Tokyo that you have everything around.
I agree.
Yeah.
And being in the city is a weird way to have a community.
That's very true.
That's the hard part. It's like, man, how do you balance that?
But I do think like having and again, I've talked about it on the podcast before with other people. I do think that, given all things considered, I think Tokyo has nice pockets of nature.
Yes.
But it could be a bit greener at the same time too. So
yeah.
I think having a bit more nature around would be quite nice.
You should go to like Hong Kong. Hong Kong has great nature.
It's nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's
interesting because it's in the tropics, so there's a lot.
That's true.
A lot more vegetation.
It's quite far in the south, huh?
Yeah. There's a lot of vegetation. They do a lot of cool things. Like there's trees on top of buildings.
I was about to say, I'm like so fascinated by this. And I don't know why it's not applied a lot more. I know there's one town in Switzerland, and I forgot if it's Zurich or not. But there is a town in Switzerland that has like by law, if you build a new house, it needs to have like a certain amount of like green area.
Nice.
And so, and like some people are lazy and they're just basically like having like a little like grass field on top of the roof, but it like just adds so much greenery and nature to town.
Wow.
And I think like I feel like that's like something that you've seen in like cities, obviously, where people are like, oh yeah, and it helps absorb carbon dioxide. And I'm like, that's a nice plus, but like I think it's very clear that just being surrounded by trees and like greenery is like not like just nice for your life quality.
It is.
It would be nice if they did that more here.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I could explain exactly why, but it does feel nice.
Yeah. I think there's like a actual. I hate saying that. There's like such a podcast thing to do, but there are studies.
Yes.
That like I think even like looking at a forest like reduces your stress levels by like 20 or 30%.
Yep. I believe it.
So that's like a real thing. Yeah, crazy.
Man.
Okay, let's bring it back for like one last round to like
let's do it.
The animation stuff.
Yes.
Has there been like anything that you've been like, now that we've talked a lot about AI and like existential like life philosophy, has been anything like more positively that you've been very excited about, or something that like has been really standing out to you in terms of like animation recently? Like, especially, I mean, since we are in Japan also, like, is there something different about how like Japanese animation companies, for example, tackle things compared to, you know, like the US or like in the West or something?
I mean, Japan has a really strong hold on tradition, which is really nice, because like that's the part that really gets eroded away with all the technology and like the capitalism and like the pace that we're trying to move today. So I think their reluctance to go to digital is actually a pretty cool thing. It's also like, you know, why we have actual cells that you can buy, you know, of like the anime, which is really cool. It's like, oh wow, there's like the sketch of the original Genga and stuff. Where like you don't really get that for like Pixar. No one's gonna like get a frame of like the Pixar Maya
render.
Like, what is that for? So like the beauty of that human art is uniquely Japanese, which is really cool. And I think that aspect of it is, I hope, gonna stay intact. And I think the reverence that Japan has for the tradition of animation is so strong that it's kind of bled into like the rest of international culture, which is really cool.
Nice.
So shout out Japan, you know, to that. That's really cool. It's almost like if there wasn't that reverence, like we would have forgotten about it like early on. Like think about it, like we already have in America. So like in Disney, we like Disney basically invented 2D animation, like he popularized it, right? Like, so when he first created all these, you know, Mickey Mouse and stuff like that, like it was kind of okay. But then like, as they got into like the Lion King and whatever, this was stuff that, which may have been based on a Japanese story, but that's regardless. But like we used to be the leaders of 2D animation to the point where like all the books about animation are written by Disney animators. Like you'll go through like the 12 principles of animation are Disney animators.
Disney, yeah.
Which I don't agree with, by the way. 12 principles is super outdated, but you know, whatever. That's a animation topic. But like the fact that we have gone so far away, we literally dropped 2D animation basically completely, thanks to the Princess and the Frog not performing well. That was basically like the last straw. And I'm like, okay, maybe you could have tried again. Like,
what a shame.
like, I don't know. Like, it was
like
good.
This is over forever. Yeah.
It was also a good movie. And the funny thing about that is like, if you actually listen to Tom Lasser talk about this, he was like, the only reason why, in my opinion as well, the Princess and the Frog didn't perform financially well is because they put the word princess in it. And so it limited the audience specifically to only like
Girls,
little girls. Yeah. But like, it's a great movie. And like, that's why, if you noticed, every Disney princess movie after that never puts the word princess. Tangled, Frozen. Like,
well, Frozen we know is because they wanted to stop people Googling.
Of course. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. That was their first reason.
Yes.
And then they're like, also it's a catchy title. So, you know, we'll do that.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that even. I actually have not seen The Princess and the Frog.
Yeah,
it's
a great movie. It's about like a, you know, the main princess is like in Louisiana and it talks a lot about Cajun culture and stuff like that, which is cool. But yeah, it's a great movie. It's a great villain, everything. So, and it's beautifully animated too. So like this entire tradition of 2D animation basically kind of disappeared overnight, like because they stopped making movies for it. So the budgets actually just disappeared. Like
that's crazy.
The studios disappeared. Yeah.
Is that something where you feel like, and you have a better insight on that, is that something where the skill set is also kind of like melting away a little bit? I mean, I guess you still have it.
It's interesting because it's still there, but like certainly being less supported financially.
Yeah.
James Baxter is such a great example because he's like a legendary animator, and like he'll just randomly have shots that he'll do on Gumball or like Adventure Time.
Nice.
And they're just like, there's actually a horse, if you haven't seen it, there's a horse in Adventure Time called James Baxter.
Oh yeah. Oh, I didn't know that was like an animator though.
He's a legendary animator, and it's the story behind that horse. He's a horse that is balancing on a beach ball, and like the entire reason why he's a horse balancing on a beach ball is because I think the director Pendleton Ward, I could be wrong, used to be a student of James Baxter's, and he basically was like, what would be the hardest possible thing to animate? And James Baxter was like, probably a horse balancing on a beach ball. And he's like, that's your character. He just
That's so cool.
But he's such a good animator. He just did it, and like
yeah.
the horse's name is named after him, and he literally just exists to be a hard thing to animate. Like that's the entire thing.
I love that.
It's so funny. But yeah, you get like little niche things like that. But like for the
Yeah.
most part, like, you know, you don't see movies like Brother Bear anymore, or like those like just like
Klaus was very nice.
Klaus was gorgeous. Yes,
Yeah.
Klaus was really good. And like you see some
So
of
I
those.
guess is that 3D?
It's technically 2D. Klaus is a
Okay.
really interesting example because it is 2D, but they used newer techniques to create a 3D shading technique on 2D characters.
Okay.
So like it looks 3D. And it's very
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
It has like an interesting
It does.
vibe to it. I
Yeah,
liked
it looks
quite a lot,
3D.
yeah.
It's really cool. It kind of blew my mind when I first saw it, but I saw the behind the scenes and it was very meticulous, like shadow creation and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I've like, do you watch a lot of like Corridor Crew and stuff like that?
Yes,
Like
yeah,
like
I've seen
VFX?
stuff. Yeah.
They did like a very interesting video, like I think fairly recently, though I guess in terms of YouTube now, it's been ages ago, like
Wow.
2 or 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Where they tried to recreate the shot from the Fellowship of the Ring
Oh, which
with
one?
the forced perspective. Do you
With
know about
the
this?
Hobbit. Yeah, the Hobbit. And
Where they built this table that had like a rig where it like was moving with the camera to like. Do you know about this?
I don't know about this particular shot. No.
So basically, yeah, this is like a technique that's like only been done a couple of times, and it's basically the entire like Bilbo being so much smaller and Frodo being so much smaller than Gandalf is like forced perspective.
Yeah.
But so basically there's like this part of the table and the rest of the table is like here, but moves like faster when the camera moves. So like forced perspective was like always something that people could do with a still camera.
Yeah.
But no one had like properly figured out how to do it with a moving shot. And so they put it like on this perfectly timed rig where like this part of the table was moving faster than this part of the table and like kept the illusion completely perfect. And then like they also had like Bilbo interact with it where he was like taking technically the lid off the tea can, but the tea can was here and he just acted and put something that was here on like the lid was on like a little, so very cool.
Wow.
And basically like they talked about how that entire technique of forced perspective and everything like there's almost no one nowadays alive who can actually recreate it, just because why wouldn't you just do
CGI
it in VFX, which is kind of like sad a little
That
bit when you
is
think
sad.
about it.
That is sad.
Yeah, little things like that. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So I feel like kind of like I wonder if that's something that is like applicable also to like animation to a certain degree, but maybe not as much. I don't know.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, it's interesting because like the 2D animation style has really been kept alive in the East. Like Japan never let go of it.
And it's like just, I mean, anime has just been getting more and more popular recently, obviously. So
yeah. So it's nice that even though the US dropped it, like the rest of the world was like, you're crazy.
Yeah, we want more of this.
Yeah, but it kind of goes to show, like, you know, we've made that mistake before. Like if it happened, we could have lost everything.
Yeah.
You know. So you know, I think CG and animation is also going to be an interesting art form too, because as AI comes in, like maybe people will use less of that, you know, to some degree for VFX. Like who knows? I hope not, because I think it is still very interesting. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to losing techniques, it kind of does happen, and it's kind of inevitable to some degree. But I think there's the people who have reverence for tradition and culture, which I think is important, should be able to keep it alive.
Keep it alive, yeah.
And yeah, I'm hopeful for that.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Very nice. All right, let's do like a very quick hot take.
All right.
Round.
Okay.
Best animated anime that you've ever seen.
I mean, my immediate go-to is probably Gurren Lagann.
Gurren Lagann.
Probably because it's just so uniquely expressive. Because it's one of the few anime that was original. It didn't have a manga, so the character design blended really well to how they were going to be animated. So,
is there something they did in there that's like technique-wise or something that's like really really standing out to you?
I don't know, but they threw galaxies.
That was pretty cool. I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean there is a lot of squash and stretch in there.
What's the guy that's like as big as the universe that like comes through the rift? Oh, what's his name?
I mean, all of them, I guess.
I mean, yeah,
Kamina?
The final one,
the anti-spiral guy?
Anti-spiral, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
God. The worst animated anime you've ever seen?
Ooh. Oh, that is tough. X-Arm.
Is there like something crazy in it?
Have you seen X-Arm?
I have not.
Have you seen the trailer for X-Arm?
I have also not seen.
You heard of X-Arm?
I have also not heard of X-Arm.
All right, let me put you on this.
Let's please.
X-Arm was a anime funded by Crunchyroll that is based on a manga. Apparently, it's pretty good. I haven't read it, but it's like a sci-fi thing, a dystopian. And they decided that for whatever reason they wanted to make it in 3D. But instead of hiring a 3D animation studio, they hired a live action commercial studio that has never done 3D animation in their life. And they tried to use MoCap, which doesn't really work. And so they ended up just hand animating a bunch of stuff with, frankly, I assume not a lot of budget, or maybe just mismanaged budget, and animators who didn't really have the chops to make an entire show. And it is like, it's impressive that it exists, right?
That someone greenlit like that going
yeah,
live.
everything was approved and they actually posted it. Because if you watch it, it will look like a YouTube video that, like, you know, with all respect to the animators that are independent online, it'll look like somebody has posted like their second or third animation that they've made, you know, and it's like, okay,
like, it's moving.
Yeah, it's like, okay, cool, and like the movement is completely not
crazy.
How things are supposed to move.
Worse than Berserk?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it is worse than Berserk. Yeah, and entirely that's why Berserk gets a little bit of credit, because they tried, you know, to actually invent a medium and like figure it out, and it was difficult. But like X-Arm, it didn't feel like they really tried.
It's just like, here.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
So I thought it might be a hard decision, but now I think about it, like it's got to be X-Arm. Yeah.
What's an anime that you feel like is underappreciated for like the animation work that got into it?
Underappreciated. Oh man, underappreciated. It's tough because like one of my favorite anime is Violet Evergarden. Violet Evergarden is definitely a beautifully animated show, and I think most people know that. But I don't think people realize how difficult animating that goddamn dress is.
Oh, the fabric.
She has so many layers. Her dress is so complicated, and like even her hair is super detailed, and like she moves around in ways that like would definitely be difficult to animate all the time. Not to mention her hands, which are made of metal.
Yeah.
So it's incredible to see such a human and like slow story animated with such high fidelity.
That's crazy.
So that aspect of it, I think, is really cool.
I mean, I've always felt like it looks really beautiful, but I guess you like clothing and stuff is something you never really like think about, or hair animation.
Like imagine just like walking, like what should just be like a walk now has like friction and like ruffles and like wrinkles within the ruffles and like has like flow and like drag and all these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I have two more.
Okay.
One for 2D and one for 3D animation.
Okay.
What is something for 2D animation that people think is really hard but really easy, and something that's really easy but people the other way around? Something that people think is really easy but is actually really hard.
Between 2D and 3D. Oh, this is just for 2D.
Just for 2D now.
Just for 2D. One thing that is kind of interesting. Transformations. And I don't mean like a mecha transformation, but like something where you're just like morphing into a different shape. That's actually relatively easy to do in 2D because you can just kind of draw it however you want. But it looks like a really difficult thing to do. It's really complicated. And like conceptually it could be difficult, but like you're just transforming a thing. Meanwhile, probably the hardest thing to do that you would think is easy, walking. Walking is one of the hardest things to animate.
Like naturally, making it look real.
Yeah, genuine walking. Like you can do like anime will abbreviate walking a lot, so you get a lot of those like I'm just gonna like do this or whatever.
Yeah.
And like cut. You also cut off
the classic.
The body a lot. Yeah. It's a lot of do like bust shots where they just like do this, and like it's funny because Berserk actually tried this in 3D where they like do a bust shot and the character's just like doing this because they kind of do that in 2D, but it doesn't work in 3D because there's a lot of problems with that concept. But like in 2D, they'll do that a lot where they just do like, I'm just gonna like kind of move and it's like enough. But actual walking is one of the most complicated maneuvers that humans do. And two, it's one of the most familiar movements that humans do. So every single person who watches someone walking will know if it feels off. So even when you abbreviate it, you have to abbreviate it in a way that still hits those fundamental markers of believability. And like there's so many things that can go wrong with a walk, this is a hot take for just the animation world for me, which I fully disagree with pretty much any animation school that basically throws students into their first animation being a walk cycle. Because that's the first thing most schools teach. And I'm like, that is the hardest thing. Torturous thing you could do to an animator, where you completely strip them of their confidence because there's absolutely zero chance.
That's the point.
I guess so. There's zero chance they will make a good walk cycle as their first ever animation.
I think it makes sense because you also use your entire body.
Yes, your weight is shifting.
And I feel like now that you say it, there are a lot of anime that usually feel pretty well animated until there's like the weird walking scene.
There's
and you're like, this looks a little bit wrong.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. Full body walking scenes are pretty rare in anime because it's a lot of work.
All right, let's flip the question.
All right.
For 3D animation, what is something that people think is easy but it's actually hard, and something that people think is hard but it's actually easy?
I would like to go back to transformations again because that's one of the things that is almost impossible in 3D. Because you don't get the freedom to change one character to another. You have to because it exists. You can't just like erase it and like redraw it and do another thing.
Would you have to like actually animate the shape itself into like something new?
Yeah, I mean that wouldn't even be possible. That's the crazy thing. It's like it's sort of like if you were to morph into if I were to turn you into like a balloon.
Yeah.
Like you have topology that exists as human. But a balloon only has like 36 faces. So like how do you change this person into a balloon shape? You kind of have to like keep all the topology intact because it still needs to be there. And then you have to like inflate it in a way that like smooths it out in a way that is like natural, but then like also like not get rid of anything else. And you can eventually do it. But like there's so many things that can go wrong in between there. Like, are you going to relax the vertices? Are you going to figure out how where they go? So it becomes a really complicated process because the object is real and you can't just do whatever you want. It's not an illusion like it is in 2D. So that's really interesting. A lot of people don't realize how difficult morphing is in 3D. Like morphing is so hard. When it comes to something that people think is difficult, but is actually really easy. Oh, simulations, water, smoke, fire. These are things that are surprisingly, like, they look so good. Everyone's like, oh my God, like the water simulation, like like the fire, like the smoke and like the explosions and stuff like that. Like you could probably teach a 5th grader to do it. It's like 2 buttons. And it's funny because like actually
someone had to figure it out once. And
yeah.
now you press the button.
Yeah, exactly. Like Quarter Crew actually talks about this where like it's the same thing with VFX where like the coolest shots have like all the explosions and like they're just like, those are literally the easiest shots to do. Like you just press the simulate button, it makes the thing, you add the default shader and it already looks like 90% of the way there. It's so funny because like that's where the computer really shines and creates these things. And like these things like water, smoke, fire, really hard in 2D.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely one that people think is like super difficult and it looks great, but like so easy.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, man, this has been a real blast. Sorry for riddling you
No
questions.
No,
It's been
please, riddle away.
Never been so curious. Like I think so far in the podcast, I had so many questions.
Dude,
So this was really fun.
I had a blast. This is
Appreciate it.
I don't get to talk about this stuff often. So.
All right. Well, I'll have you on more often.
Yes, please
do.
do.
You want to tell people where they can find you? Well, not this camera because this one died. But
Yes,
that one.
I mean, I'm on YouTube. You know, Dillongoo, Dillongoo, and I'm the same name pretty much everywhere. So Twitter, TikTok. We post on pretty much everything.
Yeah, it's all going to be in the description, of course.
Yes. We also have like Dillongoo Studio. You'll see that every now and then. That's like a second account on Twitter, for example, that we have for just the studio work. But it's all the same. It's us. You can go to dillongoostudio.com as well if you want to see our portfolio.
Nice.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching.